Oh boy, my favorite show. Boring. We need to be mad. We need to be angry. We're thinking too much around here, guys. How dare you? That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh my god, dude. That's so big, dude. We gotta have a better ground game to overpower the corporate media structure and the propaganda. I'm right on the polling. I'm right on that. That's undisputed in my mind. That's undisputed in my mind. Politics is more complicated than that. Waging political capital in an effective way. Boring. Politics is more complicated than that. That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh boy, my favorite show. Boring. We need to be mad. We need to be angry. We're thinking too much around here, guys. How dare you? That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh my god, dude. That's so big, dude. We gotta have a better ground game to overpower the corporate media structure and the propaganda. I'm right on the polling. I'm right on that. That's undisputed in my mind. That's undisputed in my mind. Politics is more complicated than that. Waging political capital in an effective way. Boring. Politics is more complicated than that. That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh boy, my favorite show. Boring. We need to be mad. We need to be angry. We're thinking too much around here, guys. How dare you? That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh my god, dude. That's so big, dude. We gotta have a better ground game to overpower the corporate media structure and the propaganda. I'm right on the polling. I'm right on that. That's undisputed in my mind. That's undisputed in my mind. Politics is more complicated than that. Waging political capital in an effective way. Boring. Hello, 4 people. Hello, 5 people. How's it going? How's it going tonight? I hope it's going well. Hello, 6 people. How's it going tonight? Drop a like down below for the common late night stream thing. DBC, what's up? I hope you had a good day as well. I'm gonna be coughing a lot. Hello, 7 people. Please drop a like. Yes, thank you. We're gonna talk about, I think it was censorship. I'm not sure. Nothing too exciting. Should still be a fun convo, though. Like always. I've been coughing since I was sick last week. I don't know why. Maybe it's allergies or I don't know. Ooh, hello.
Oh, Hey, can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I only have one camera on this computer, so I can't show myself to you
Oh, that's so terrible.
without
Oh, that's
lagging it out. Just how
yeah.
it is sometimes, you
Talk
know?
to you though. It's been a while. Okay.
Yes.
So I have two things that I want to
Wait, let me
debate
get
you
you
on.
on screen really quick before
Oh
you
yeah, 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 for
announce
sure.
this. Sorry, oh my god. Okay, small screen.
I believe in you.
Okay, I have to crop you out now. Display capture. I forget what we were talking about, but you'll have to remind me.
Yeah, so originally it was going to be censorship, which I'm happy to do. But also I watched your take on Afghanistan and I disagree with that also. So either one is fine with me.
I'm gonna die.
I believe in you. I hopefully you won't die. My plan is that you're not going to die.
I'm probably not gonna go too hardcore on the Afghanistan take. We'll probably well, it depends. I don't even know. Okay, you're up there, I think. Hello, 10 people. Drop likes if you are here. Thank you for joining us on this fine Monday night in America.
Mondays are not
The only
ideal.
free country in the world.
Like
We also
Mondays.
have a kitchen background, as I can see. Beautiful. Okay, let me
Yes.
pin this. Okay, I'm gonna cough one more time, and hopefully I don't have to cough again for a little bit. Okay, 1 second. Ah, that felt so good. Okay.
Were you muted? You muted people so that society couldn't hear your cough? That's so
Yeah,
upsetting.
I don't want them to feel my weakness.
You don't want them. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's
Okay,
very
so
okay.
Quibbles and coffee, or what is your name again?
Quibbles over. No worries. My name is Jonah, but I have a podcast called Fence Sitters with Tom Foolery and with K Fellows, and then I have a semi-dead podcast called Quibbles over Coffee.
Over
Uh,
coffee, not on coffee.
over
Okay,
coffee. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
good to
It's
know.
like we quibble as we're drinking coffee. The thing is that neither of us are actually interested in coffee at all, and we just never drink coffee. Although I do have a coffee maker now, which is quite exciting, but I don't use it. I just have
Coffee
hot
is
chocolate.
purely for utility for me. I don't really drink it for taste or anything like that. If I do drink it and I need to, I'll get something with a lot of sugar in it. But I usually stay away from it. Um, oh no, encoding overload. Consider turn down video. 1 second. Let me turn down my video settings on my stream really quick, cause
I believe in you.
my laptop can't handle it. I'm like
It can't handle the truth. We're just so powerful,
I'm
you know?
lagging. Custom.
Yeah.
Let's do 29.7. Okay,
Okay.
that should be good. Okay, so what do you want to talk about?
Okay. So either one is fine. We can talk about censorship or we can talk about Afghanistan.
Let's start with censorship because I think we disagreed on Twitter originally with that.
Yes, this is true. Okay, so the original disagreement. Wait, I'm gonna throw my food in the fridge. Give me a second. I'm sorry.
Okay. We don't want to waste food. Anti-free
I'm
speech.
terribly sorry.
I'm
I had to do
suppressing my
that.
own
Now it's
cough.
done,
Ranch
and now I won't
Panda.
have to do it again because I did it. But I do have to put on my headphones. So I'm going to. Oh, they're on. Okay. So the original disagreement was that I actually don't remember the original disagreement, to be honest. But I'll just give my broad stance. My broad stance is that I think that uh, we don't have the right as companies to just be like deciding who is and is not going to be permitted onto our to use our content, to use our platform. So like the equivalent I would give is, do you think that like a company that is responsible for giving a shoot, what's it called? If you're like, hold up, I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Give me like 20 seconds to think this through before I speak again. I am prepared. Okay. I think. Well, okay. I'll take this from a different perspective. I didn't really prepare on this one, and now it is clear. But now I am prepared. Okay. If we're talking about the example of Facebook, let's say, the way that it works currently is that when you're agreeing to Facebook, you're agreeing both to the actual content that's on Facebook, but also to the censorship of Facebook. And I don't think that that's necessary. I don't think you have to do it that way. I think you can choose to have both the underlying content, and also at a separate level, the underlying censor. And you should be able to choose both of those simultaneously. And the way you do that is you'd have forks, right? You'd have the ability to choose, this is an example of Facebook.fb. This is an example of Facebook.dgg or whatever it is, right? And each of these would be censors that you're choosing to go through, because the reality is that none of us want to be looking at the internet without any form of censorship, because there's a huge amount of just like nudity, there's a huge amount of just like nonsense that we don't want to deal with. But I don't think that one individual company should be the one who has the complete control over what version of censorship we're going to see.
Okay, this is going to come up a lot with the what is it called? They're trying to make the internet one big community. Is it called the metaverse or something like that? So this issue will come up a lot. My big problem with what social media sites currently do is basically the algorithms. So I don't like the idea of like banning speech. I wish we didn't have to go that far. If somebody is going against what we would consider basic fact about something like the current pandemic. So this is something like the CDC, although they're not perfect, they are the government agency basically setting policy for schools and businesses across the entire country. The CDC says put masks on indoors. Burger King has it, Dunkin' Donuts has it, McDonald's has it, and a lot of schools, unless if you're in like Florida or something, feel the need to do mandates and have the jurisdiction to do that. And the CDC, although they just lost the Supreme Court case, they have some other power as well. So if we have somebody on social media who is a public figure and they are literally spreading something that is so vehemently untrue, like 1,000 times a day, and this is literally getting people killed because it's going against medical wisdom. Like imagine if somebody said, I don't know. What's a good example? Don't take Tylenol. It's gonna, or like if it's something so basically agreed upon in society. I feel like even if we had a more regulated social media landscape, that these people wouldn't be able just to spew whatever disinformation they want in that scenario as well. But my big issue is the algorithms that propel it. The algorithms are what makes corporations money, and my big issue is it is not the platforming. It's the fact that they'll platform the speech and they will also put rocket fuel in it. They will let that speech go further than ever before. And disinformation and misinformation feeds into the algorithm with how they specialize it for people. It's going to get more engagement. The more inflammatory news stories are going to get more engagement. And this happens with corporate news too, but corporate news is held more accountable in the sense where they can't completely blatantly lie to the extent that independent media can. So the big issue I'm seeing right now is there's a lot of lies coming out about like COVID. For example, millions are dying from the vaccine, and this is getting a lot of algorithm engagement, and social media companies are unwilling to shut off these algorithms. So they do this BS policy around the edges where they like ban Donald Trump for some reason, although they made so much money off of him spreading the messages they claim to not want to sponsor. So my big thing is I don't want to be banning people exactly, but these corporations are choosing the profit. They don't want to vet their own algorithms. They want to let it go as crazy for any topic. So that's my big issue with how it's done right now.
Okay, so I would break that into sort of two different parts, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I would describe that as like one, that there's bad content, and that two, that the algorithm is helping that bad content. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's making the problem worse. There is always disinformation in the world. There are always like anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorists. But the issue is Facebook, and they blame Parler for this, but Facebook is the reason Parler exists. Facebook is the #1 recruiting site for Parler. You don't find 4chan or Parler without Facebook nowadays. There's actually a couple studies, if you want me to send you these numbers on it, but most Parler disinformation is linked from Facebook. So people on Parler are actually clicking off of Parler to go to Facebook to see their conspiratorial stuff. So these minority opinions by like 1% of the population are now being spread through this crazy algorithm, through these propagandized not only the memes, because this yellow journalism.
Okay, so let's take this like one by one. Let's just start with
Sure.
the bad content being permitted. Do you think so? The argument that you provided there is essentially that this content is bad. This content is going to do demonstrable harm to America, and for that reason, it should not be permitted. Is that fair?
It shouldn't be given wings. Not that it shouldn't be permitted, but it shouldn't be given to the algorithm and boosted to millions of people.
Yeah, so I'm trying to avoid working on the algorithm. We're going to get to that, but I first want to just sort of like talk about just basic should these things be permitted, right? Because I see this as sort of two certainly related, but not the exact same issue. Is that fair?
I would say for a government official, to blatantly lie, it would have to. It's hard because we have to set arbitrary limits. Of course, we can't do like, oh, once you lie 100 times, this is when it gets bad. Because I don't want to ban somebody from Twitter or Facebook for saying a rant, like a half truth or something, or like if they ask a question about foreign policy, like when when we were going over in the Middle East after like 9/11. If they did ask questions like that, I don't want those people to be suppressed or muted. But when it's something so agreed upon, like the medical field, and it's 99% consensus with scientists and doctors, that's when I see it like, okay, we need to cut down on this type of disinformation. Like Candace Owens getting 50,000 likes on a tweet that says, I slept next to my husband when he had COVID and I didn't get it. Therefore, like that kind of stuff. But she does it over and over and over again. And vaccines kill people, which isn't true. Although there's like one death
Yeah, I'm
reported
not
globally. But
defending Candace Owens or any of the shit that she says, to be clear. What I am defending is her right to say it. And the reason I do that is because I don't see the distinction here between saying that we ought to censor Candace Owens online versus we ought to have the government come in and censor Glenn Beck on the radio versus that we should be stopping newspapers that say stupid shit from writing their stupid shit. We should be stopping magazines, all of that. And that gets into very dangerous territory.
well,
Very
that's why I
quickly. Is that
separate
correct?
it with the algorithm, because if Facebook wanted to say, we will only do the algorithm for buying stuff for your dog or for Fortnite, I'd be fine with that. If they said we are going to shut down this crazy algorithm for political content, for example, I might be okay with that. If they just said we are going to boost what the CDC said, but we're not going to censor anybody, we're just not going to put it in the algorithm. So if there is a post that says the vaccine has a 10 times higher death rate than COVID, we are not going to boost anything like that because obviously their services can't handle filtering out posts like that, whether they want to boost it or not. So that's why I bring in the algorithm, because it would have to be within their own design of the algorithm. They would have to shift it.
When you make this algorithmic claim, are you saying that Facebook should do this, or are you saying that the government should make Facebook do this?
I'm saying, I don't know what I would think about what the government could do. The only thing that I have as a basis for what the government can do for disinformation, I usually turn to how the UK does their broadcasting laws. For example, they wouldn't allow like Tucker Carlson on air because of how objectively false he is. And you probably heard of the court case in the U.S. where they said no reasonable person would believe Tucker Carlson, so therefore they can't persecute him, or like Alex Jones. So I usually look to the UK for legal stuff, but I don't really know what my position would be on the government and algorithms. I just look at it. One comparison I made was if we could prove the algorithm is killing people, or let's say this might not even be analogous at all, but let's say Tesla made self-driving cars that were hitting people by accident, and our response as a society wasn't to fix that algorithm that is in the cars that causes them to hit people. It instead went into resources to build barriers on sidewalks instead of fixing the core problem. So instead of fixing the algorithms, everybody focuses on Parlor. We should block Parlor. I don't think we should block Parlor or 4chan. I don't think we should make those bigger news stories. But it's all centered around that. So it is a difficult conversation. I just don't think people are focusing on the right things when they're complaining about it even.
It seems to me that to make this claim, if you make this claim governmentally, I think that is, first of all, it's not that I think. I think it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear from a constitutional perspective that is unconstitutional. You can't do that from a constitutional perspective. To actually come in and force governmentally force a private organization to change their algorithm, and I assume you would cede that, just constitutionally, not speaking morally at all. But beyond that, I think that on a moral level, I also think that it's pretty crazy that the government would be instituting that level of power over a private organization, particularly given that the government often sucks, right? I mean, Trump was just president not that long ago at all. And I can't imagine what it would look like if Trump was able to decide arbitrarily what is and is not allowed to be seen by Americans, right?
Well, that's why I said the thing about all political content being maybe detached from the algorithm. But I don't know. But like I said, I don't have any
But
solution
yeah,
for how that would
but
be done in government.
so doing that and effectively only trouncing or destroying, rather, I shouldn't say destroying, but certainly crippling at the very least the capacity for online media to exist in a political space doesn't cripple political media. It just cripples that version of political media, which means that the political media will continue in other spaces that by definition are tailored for older people, because online media is younger people disproportionately. And the effect of that is to silence the capacity of younger people to be involved in politics, which I think is pretty dangerous for obvious reasons.
My first um, idea would be to invest billions of dollars in media literacy programs throughout the country, not only for young people, but also for old people, because I think that's a big issue with what we are seeing. If we had people who were more able to sort through what information is good or bad, I think that would be really good. So my first response to all of this is we need to make sure people are equipped to process information before we go nuclear on anything. Like, I don't want to ban Marjorie Taylor Greene from Twitter as like my first option. That's not my principled position, but that's sort of like a position of like last resort. Because I don't know what you do when somebody is making 50 and this might just be a logistical issue that we have to solve because like you said, it might not be morally or constitutionally good to do what I'm suggesting. It might not be practical or even realistic to do what I'm saying. But if you are presenting 100 pieces of disinformation on Twitter, as Marjorie Taylor Greene does, all that disinformation is going to be emotionally charged. Fact checkers cannot disprove all of those things in an effective way to prevent the disinformation spread. And we see this all over the place with any lie that spreads online. Of course, the correction never follows as far as the original lie. So my big thing is, how do I combat all of the Republican Party, even their leaders, with like Kevin McCarthy, who is so willing to lie, blatantly lie about things like critical race theory or stuff like that. How
What do
do
you mean
we
by
combat
blatantly
that
lie?
effectively? Just
Just
like
to
when he
clarify.
says
Yeah.
critical race theory hates white people or something like that.
Should
That is something that's really
should that be
like,
illegal?
no, that's one of the things that's really like you can't really say there's like a scientific consensus for that. But more so for
Or
the
he should be
COVID
allowed to say
stuff.
it.
Yeah, you should be allowed to say it, but my big thing
Okay.
is, at what point would we say you're not allowed to? Do you have any limit to that, or would you just
If
say
you're
if
calling directly,
disinformation
yeah,
takes over,
if you're
then
calling
it would take over no matter what?
if you're calling directly for violence, that's not allowed.
What if you're
And just clarify,
calling
that's the
for?
Constitution. That's not me talking. That's the
But
Constitution,
what if
right?
you're
The
saying something
Constitution says
like,
that
for
and has
example,
for a while.
what if you said something like, you should go outside without a mask on right now and get in people's faces because the pandemic isn't really killing people. The vaccine is killing more people than COVID is. And you should not take the vaccine. But if you see ivermectin and you have a chance to take that and you get COVID, you should take that. Do you think that person should be held accountable in any way? Because those are a lot of statements. If you,
So
so
there's
for,
two versions of holding someone to account. You can hold someone to account on an interpersonal level, and you can hold someone to account on a military level, right? When we talk about the government holding someone to account, what we're talking about is throwing them into a cage and not letting them leave that cage, right? Or doing something worse to them potentially. That's what we mean when we say the government should have a response
um,
ultimately.
sorry. But then you say before also, would you say if Facebook wanted to ban that person that they shouldn't be allowed to? Is
Correct.
that what you said earlier? They should not be
Correct.
allowed to.
Yep.
So I guess I'm just searching for what the practical solutions are for speech like
Yeah.
that.
So
So
my
what is your
solution,
worldview with this? Is it just like if people are, I guess, blind enough to believe all this stuff, we just have to manage the externalities? Is it we have to, what I said before, we have to fund more media literacy and make sure we're getting the message out to people to try and disprove all the disinformation? What is your like worldview for that?
so my solution is a bunch of forked versions of each of these sites, right? So like I think that the version of the internet that I'd like to get to eventually is one where startups are actually possible. The reason startups aren't possible, and they're somewhat possible, of course, but they're not possible to the same extent that they were in just a decade ago, is because there's a sort of a economy that begins to arise, such that because there are so many users and because there are so many content creators on a place like YouTube, on a place like Facebook, on a place like Twitter, it becomes very difficult to get your way in, to fight your way into those same places. And so that scale makes it impossible to actually find some new thing. And so from a perspective of me as a consumer, I think that's really dangerous, because I think that the effect of that is that I'm not able to get the best version of the UI. I mean, Spotify is disgusting. Have you seen the Spotify UI? It's hideous, but they own Joe Rogan. So like, how else are you going to watch Joe Rogan, right? They own, whatever it is. Call me Daddy, is it? I love Call Me Daddy. It's fantastic. Like, all of these things you can only get through Spotify, right? But the UI sucks. It sucks incredibly, and there's no way to get around the fact that it sucks. And the reason that it sucks is because of that fact that you can't get around it. If there were forks, that wouldn't be the case. If you had that same access to that same content, but you were able to see it on different versions of the same site, with money still going to the original creator, that would be something that would ultimately be much more beneficial to the audience. But it would also mean that from the perspective of content moderation, you'd also be able to have the version of the site that's seen by Jolah be a different version of the site, just in terms of what's actually being seen on it, in addition to like what the UI is, than the version that I might be seeing.
Okay, so can you dumb that down for me?
So a fork is a term that's used in the context of like cryptocurrency. Essentially, what it means is you take the same underlying value, or the same underlying data, and then you just put it on two different sites in this case, right? I don't want to get too bogged down in the cryptocurrency example. Let's just use it this way. So if you have the same video that's currently just being shown on YouTube right now, you take all of the YouTube data, all of the videos that are on YouTube, and now you have both YouTube and also BlueTube. And BlueTube is going to have I was about to say RedTube for the Republicans, but I'm not going to say that. That's not going to happen.
Yes.
So BlueTube and Republican Tube, right? So BlueTube is going to have a bunch of moderation that's going to encourage, frickin' whoever it is, the Jimmy Dore types, if you will, right? Because we all love Jimmy Dore so much. And then the red tube, if you will, the Republican tube. Republican tube is going to encourage everyone to watch Tom McDonald, right? And that's going to be the top of the list there. And I think it's perfectly legitimate. I don't think that we have a right to like stop people from being able to decide what kind of content they want to see. And if they want to stop me from being able to be on RedTube, that's fine. But I might not let them be on BlueTube, and that's also fine.
Do you think there should be standards for what private schools teach people in America? When it comes to regulating private schools. And I'm just talking about this as to see what our opinions are on what information people should be able to access. So if somebody's going to a private school, and they're being taught that, like, I don't know, Irish people, because I hear this online. This is the big one in my Tom McDonald comments, that Irish people were actually discriminated against more than Black people were in America. I hear that all the time. That's like a really far right talking point that I see on Facebook too. I actually have had relatives say that to me, that Irish people are the real ones that deserve reparations or whatever. So if a private school wants to teach that, should the government regulate that? And also, if like the Republican version of Facebook wanted to teach that, should they be able to? Because whether it's a child being taught this or a 50-year-old man that just got online for the first time, the way they teach stuff on the internet with their propaganda tools, the fear mongering, the psychological addiction they give people, teaching them that can actually give them a really violent worldview if they are taught false history or taught inaccuracies about like daily life. So my thing is, if we are going to be, and I need to hear your opinion on this, but if we have to set standards for what people are able to learn in schools, I think if there's a website that is like 99% inaccurate information, then we should have some type of ability for the government. And by the way, my stance is about like getting money out of politics and stuff. When I say the government should be doing something like this, I don't mean a future authoritarian government, but right now, we're betting on the government being people serving enough to at least maintain some standard of, well, at least I am, some standard of objectivity when it comes to that stuff. So what's your opinion on all of that?
Yeah. So to the first question about private schools, someone put it in the chat. I think it was Randy Panda, or Ranch Panda. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry, Ranch Panda. I don't mean to mess up your name. But like, yeah, I don't believe in private schools as a general thing. I think that we should be moving towards a charter model. That's a completely different conversation. But that being said, I think that there is a basic question of like, I don't think that you should be able to teach about the Bible as like the word of God in the context of a public school, but you should absolutely be able to do it in a private school. And I don't think that we should be able to tell private institutions that they're not allowed to teach what they want in that context. I was derailed by that. I'm sorry. What was your second question? Part of that?
I just keep thinking about Tucker Carlson going on television and literally talking about the white replacement theory, and we might have to turn to
Yeah,
violence
he'd be
because he
allowed to.
literally says we. And you can actually argue
So
that would be against the First Amendment if he's calling for violence. But the way they do this is. It's never gonna be like we need to kill people right now. It's always gonna be a slow walking to that
yeah.
conclusion. You know, it's always
So
gonna
let's
be
play this
like your
out.
country's being taken away from you. We are gonna be at the point where your daughters are gonna be taken away by these people that are moving into your suburbs, and you know
Mhm.
they ease into it.
So let's play this out. I am a far left president, and Tucker Carlson says that fucking white replacement, and I think that the effect of that is going to be that he is indirectly calling for the death of black people, and so I ban him. Right? Okay, I successfully do that. He's now banned. Ta-da! Fox News, all of Fox News is destroyed. Cool. Then Donald Trump becomes president. And Donald Trump becomes president, and he gets us into another war. And I say, as a lefty, I'm like, hey, like, hear me out. We should not be in this war. And he hears that, and he says that when I'm calling for us to leave this war, the effect of that is that I'm calling for the death of, a million people in Syria, wherever it is.
I wouldn't want it done by the executive. It would be done through an. Is my microphone low? One
It's a
second.
little
I
low.
really
Yeah.
messed up my microphone for a second there.
No, it's
It's on the wrong
fantastic.
settings.
Everything is beautiful.
Okay. I think I can be heard now. I have to fix it though. I would never want this done at the executive level. I do not want the president to have any power in this. It would have to be a different organization. That would find media agencies that are blatantly lying or calling for violence, and they would have to do what they do with that. Yeah, I don't know why this got messed up. I thought it was on a automatic mode, but I guess my microphone's messed up. But yeah, I would never want it done by the president because I don't want it. You don't want a program like this,
Okay.
or even something like the CDC.
So who's it
You
done
don't want
by?
it to be completely rocked by a change in the executive seat.
So who's it done by?
It would have to be a outside organization where the people are appointed. It would have to be. It could be something that's appointed by like House members or something like that, or some type
Okay,
of
so
committee
it's
or.
being so Marjorie Taylor Greene is now deciding who's doing this.
No, it happens through a democratic fund. Or a what do we call that? A republic. It would happen through a democratic republic function or whatever you would call that. It'd be our representatives debating, and they'd have to like maybe confirm members, just like they do with organizations nowadays. It's never going to
Right,
be
but
like one individual person of Congress ever putting somebody on one of these boards.
someone has the majority. Either the Democrats or the Republicans have the majority. So if the Republicans have the majority,
But you
Marjorie
wouldn't
Taylor
say
Greene
that it
is the one
would
who's
do a
deciding.
complete overturn every single time a new president takes office. And I don't have an exact example for an agency that has
You're
done this.
describing Okay, so you're describing something similar to the Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court is not decided every single term. It's decided irregularly. And the result of that is that sometimes someone like Donald Trump is able to have a shit ton of appointments, more so than other people might have in an 8-year term, even though he only had 4 years, right? And so like the effect of that is not that you're actually getting around the matter of it being political. It remains political. It's a question of how often is it being decided politically. But if you have Mitch McConnell in control, if you have Marjorie Taylor Greene in control, if you have, whoever it is, these people can have the effects of being demonstrably evil and awful. So like, I think that when we're building our government systems, we have to build our government systems with the assumption that Donald Trump is going to come into office next year.
Okay, sorry, one second. I'm trying to get my microphone set back up.
Yeah, no worries.
With the proper setting. It's usually on an automatic setting, and now it's on a manual one. Okay, manual, automatic level, automatic,
While you're doing that, I have to talk to Fat Wind. Fayette Wind? I don't really know.
tone
But
natural.
Fayette Wind says that we should not be funding schools with property taxes because property taxes shouldn't exist. I agree with this. Property taxes are disgusting. We need to get a land value tax. Land value taxation is infinitely better than a property tax. A property tax is forcing you, literally making you pay extra money for daring to invest in your own community. This is nonsense. I hate it. It's absolute nonsense. Everyone should check out, hold up, what's it called? It's called the Center for Property Tax Reform.org, and also vacantland.nyc.com. Both of these are done by the Robert Schlackenbach Foundation, and they're fantastic, and they show you how awful property taxes are and how land value taxation is better. But the other component of that statement that they made is also true, that property taxes are localized. They're done at the city level, not at the state level. This is a problem. We have to be doing the payment for school at either a state or a national level, because that's the only way to make it equitable across school districts.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'd have to look at how the appointments would be done. I don't have a
But so
actual
this is the
description of
problem.
it, but this is how Ofcom is done in the UK. When they do their appointments on the board that decides like, hey, this media broadcast is completely false. So for example, Tucker Carlson cannot be shown in our country. It would be a board. And we could say this about everything in our democracy, by the way. We are making things that are going to be stable and incremental, and that are going to be doing a decent job at keeping some level of objectivity. If we got to the point where Marjorie Taylor Greene owned a big enough part of our government to set precedent on that level, to take over the Supreme Court, to take over this thing I'm talking about, to regulate media organizations. If we get to that point, our entire government is not going to be functioning correctly anyway. So if we want to talk about worst case scenarios for all of these things, we could say like, oh, what if these people take over and they appoint terrible judges throughout the entire court system, and the FDA gets overrun and the CDC gets overrun by Mike clones after they clone Michael Lindell in the laboratory for grown meat, for the genetically grown meat.
You are now muted. I cannot hear a word that you speak.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Things are broken. Things are broken. This is not ideal.
Hey, what's up, Slide Tendencies?
I can hear you now.
You can hear me again? So yeah, we can talk about the worst case
Sorry.
scenarios and all of these things, but we have a lot of things that function based off like appointments, and they don't fall apart. And that is based on our entire representative democracy not falling apart. But
Yeah.
if this entire core in Washington does take a crap someday, that's going to be the last. If your argument is we shouldn't have a function for this particular thing in general, I could argue that before we had like a CDC, we shouldn't have far right people dictating what we do during a pandemic, because they're not going to believe any of the science behind it. If you think this is a more dire issue
That's not
that like
equivalent.
an authoritarian party would be able to use, sure, but
Wait,
I can
that's
make
not
this
equivalent.
I can make this
That's
argument
not
for any
equivalent.
government organization.
You can't. You can't make it for any organization. Like, okay, when I think about what should be in the context of of government power versus what's in the private market power, when I answer that question, my answer is, what's the one that's more difficult to exploit? So if I'm like infinitely evil, right? If I am Hitler in the flesh, okay, like, what is the way that I can maximally benefit myself at the expense of the people? So if we're thinking about like a fire department, for
But
example.
I'm not talking about one person. He'd have to get
No,
the
I know,
entire
I
country
know,
on
I
his side
understand.
first
I
for the
understand.
representative democracy to do
I'm
his
just trying to
bidding.
frame my basic belief. If I'm thinking of like fire departments, is it easier to exploit the fire department in order to fuck over the public, in order to get rich, by having it be owned by the private market, so that you have to pay on an individual level in order to get the fire trucks to come, in order to save your house while it's actively on fire, which is something they did in Rome, right? Or is it better to have it be done by the government? Well, if it's done by the private market, sometimes people will literally just burn down your house, and then as it is burning, they will start bartering with you. It's very difficult to barter with someone who is the only one with access to a fire truck when your house is actively on fire. Basically, you're willing to pay up to the cost of your house in order to save your house, right? So like, that's nonsense. That can't be it can't be the answer. It has to be done through the government. I would argue the same thing about policing. I would argue the same thing about healthcare. I would argue the same thing about a number of things. I would not argue the same in relation to matters of free speech. I think that when the government controls speech, that is terrifying, Genuinely terrifying. And I'm not saying it's not also terrifying for speech to be controlled by the private market. It's also terrifying for it to be controlled by this private market. By the way, it's also terrifying for healthcare to be controlled by the government. But I don't think that it's equally terrifying as it is in the reverse context.
Have we had any examples of like organizations like this being used in the wrong
Sure.
way?
USSR. They
Okay.
had complete control over the media. That is
Is there
also true of
any
North
modern
Korea.
liberal
Also
democracy
true.
that wasn't a dictatorship that we can turn to that this went wrong? Like, for example, France has a lot of police state. Do they have something like this? Because France has a lot of police state crackdowns. They're pretty authoritarian. I'm trying to look at
They're not
issues
authoritarian
with
to the
Ofcom.
extent that you're describing.
What
They're
they did with
authoritarian. I don't want to be France, but they are not authoritarian to the extent that you're describing right now.
has the U.S. ever had anything as aggressive as their like hijab laws or anything like that when it comes to teaching about like Islam in schools? Because they were literally putting people in jail if they even questioned their
Wait,
teacher.
there's multiple places that we're talking about. When we're talking about the public consumption of media, that is different than talking about the consumption of media in public schools, right? That's not the same.
Oh, I just said in general. I was just saying in general. France has a lot of tough
Yeah, I think
crackdowns.
that France is a demonstrably worse country than America in a variety of ways. Free speech certainly being among them, but I don't want to be France, right?
And maybe we could say we could fill in the loopholes behind what lets Tucker Carlson get away when he says something openly violent.
Yeah,
I'd have
how?
to look at that exact case though. I don't. I don't. I was just saying that's something we could look towards.
The problem
As
is
like
I don't.
a. Wait, what's
The
up?
problem is, yeah, the problem is I don't know how to say that Tucker Carlson isn't allowed to say what he's saying without opening the door to allow someone like Donald Trump to say that Rachel Maddow is not allowed to say what she says.
But how would Rachel Maddow ever be taken to court for what she says? Has she ever said anything like blatantly false or causing or like calling for violence as Tucker Carlson has?
If you call for going to a war, is that calling for violence?
Um, with going to war, I don't think so.
It's not calling for violence. Of course
Did
it
she
is.
call for going to war?
I'm just asking in the abstract. Is it calling for violence to call for people to go for the country to go to war?
In what context? What war?
Doesn't matter. Is it in the abstract? Is that a call for violence?
No, I actually wouldn't say so because it's not gonna unless if you were saying like a group within the U.S., you should be attacking them. Because if Rachel Maddow says we should go to war as a country, you can
What
say
if I
that's
say
propaganda,
we
but
should
that isn't saying we should go attack Muslim people or something like that. Like
what if I
Tucker
say we
Carlson
should
literally does
go
that.
what if I say we should go attack all of the Middle East because they're dirty sand and words?
Yeah,
Is that
that should be banned. Yeah. Sure, you could
but
just
I'm
take
just
that
calling
off
for a
like
war.
CNN or MSNBC. You're not calling for
I'm
a
just
war at
calling
that
for a
point.
war. Of
You're
course I am.
aiming towards one group that is also living within the
I'm not
U.S.
saying
Because if
anything
you say
about
we
this.
should be bombing a different country because of their skin color or because of their nationality or religion, that's different from saying we have to bomb them because of geopolitical reasons, for example. Those are completely different realms
Okay.
of what we're
So if
talking about.
it's
Because Tucker Carlson
so if
literally says white people are being taken over in this country, and we might need to turn the violence to stop it. That is worlds difference from calling for making a geopolitical argument. Even if you are propagandizing people, that's completely different. Nobody's gonna
so,
here we should go to war with a country and say unless if you really load it towards that, like Islam is a religion of violence, therefore we need to go kill communism. Like that's different. Oh, we have to kill
so
Islam.
it should
That's a
be
little bit
illegal
different.
to say that we should go to war because racism, but it should not be illegal to say that we should go to war because the people of Afghanistan, for example, will never be able to run their country on their own because they're fundamentally flawed, because they're fundamentally blah, 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 which is not
Fundamentally flawed.
racist.
That's a little bit loaded.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Is that going to get in?
That's why I
Unless
said it.
if you are really leaning into the Islamophobia thing, like this is
No, I'm not leading into Islamophobia. I'm saying that they're just like subhuman idiots who are from a backward country and don't have the capacity to run their own lives. Should that be illegal?
That's more of a
It's not racist.
geopolitical argument. Is that going to cause violence
Geopolitical.
within the U.S.? The thing that I'm talking about right now is if people are watching this content, are they getting the tone of are they personally more likely to do like acts of violence or whatever? Because I'm talking about literally, and you're going away from this with a really debate bro tactic. If when Tucker Carlson literally says white people are being taken over, we might have to we might have to fight to prevent this from happening because your culture is being stolen. Western civilization is crashing. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about some fringe war hawk going on MSNBC and arguing for going back into Afghanistan.
The point is principle. My point is that
I'm talking about what we
get to the
actually need to do to make sure the world works.
But Jolah, in order to make the world work, you can't just make laws that say that Tucker Carlson can't do his job, right? If you do make a law,
If you're
that
calling
law
for
will be applied
violence,
not
that
just
would go against freedom of speech.
when you make laws, they don't just get applied against the people you want them to get applied against. They get applied against everyone, right?
Sure, but right now we have laws in this country.
You can't just okay. So saying right now is not an answer to that. You can't just say that like
that is
right
an answer
now,
to that. Every point in history, when we're
because I
talking about
disagree with
unilateral
Tucker
power for
Carlson.
anything, we're talking about right now. When it comes to even emergency powers during wartime, like
But
we're
law
talking
is
about
not
right
about
now.
right now. No,
The president
law
has
is not
immense,
about just
has
right now.
immense executive power when it comes to war. Like we have when we talk about this
law
stuff,
is
we
not
are
just about-
talking about the future, but we are also talking about what we're facing now. Especially if you consider, do you consider misinformation and disinformation an existential threat to democracy in general? Do you think that's some
An
type of threat
existential
right
threat?
now?
Of course not. Do I think it's a threat? Yeah. Do I think it's
I
an
think it's
existential threat?
existential.
No.
I don't think our government is going to function well at
You
all.
think
And
that
if
it's
it
new?
no, it's not new, but because of like
So then how
social
is it
media
existential?
algorithms, it's spreading further than ever before because of algorithms.
Wait. Between Jefferson and Adams at the founding of our country, there were rumors that one was a hermaphrodite and the other was dead.
There weren't social media
Misinformation
algorithms
is not
convincing
new.
people of complex topics like the white replacement theory. That's totally different from
Wait, do you
innocent.
think the white replacement theory is new?
It's not new, but it's being propelled by the algorithm. So now a large enough chunk of the country is believing in that. And the fear of immigration and of America becoming less white is causing people to elect people like Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's support is now more than ever from a white nationalist background that was kept under wraps. And I know people blame it on economic populism often, but it's because of the internet and social media algorithms convincing people to join his cult. The number one reason, if you watch any of the documentaries about this stuff, if you look at the information for how people came to like Trump, it was because of social media information being gathered about his supporters and social media companies selling that data, and every company was able to fearmonger in a perfectly crafted way to make sure all of these people believed in their big lie. This is the entire thing that was happening in the past 10 years. That's why people are supporting Trump so ardently, because they literally think this is the world now. One half of the Republican Party thinks this is reality when it comes to white people being replaced, and when it comes to the concept of racism in the U.S. If we have, and I could send you these studies as well, if we have like 70% of high school seniors not knowing the Civil War was fought over slavery in 2021, I think that's a pretty dangerous place to be in, especially with how Republicans, how well they operate in local government. And like just when it comes to lying blatantly on social media and stuff. I don't think
racism is new.
I'm not talking about it being new. Social media algorithms are new.
Let's just go down the list. So racism is not new. Is misinformation new?
Actually, right now the way misinformation is being done is 100% new. Yeah,
Really?
it's a completely new phenomenon. Yeah, in political,
You don't think that
communications.
You don't think that newspapers were lying? to previous
Newspapers are
generations?
not the same as ads that are perfectly crafted with
Newspapers are
psychology in
absolutely the
mind.
same.
They are not the
Newspapers are
same
absolutely
as
the same.
media that shows you sound
Newspapers
and
had-
blood
had-
and violence and videos of Antifa
Newspapers had
rioting and
so
videos
much
of
more control.
Black Lives Matter
That is
rioting.
not accurate.
That's
Newspapers
not.
had so
If you
much
think
more
newspapers
control.
have more
Jolah,
control than social media
Jolah,
does nowadays,
not
then that's
today.
just dumb.
Not today. Not today. That's not what I said. What I said is that in previous generations, if we're comparing the amount of control that the New York Times had over the broad ethos of American political world in the period of the 1940s versus the amount of control that like Joe Rogan has today. Joe Rogan is nothing compared to New York Times.
I feel like we're talking about the Second Amendment back in like 1800 when we had musket balls being shot. This is a totally different conversation from yellow journalism.
It's not. There has always been yellow journalism. There has always been a problem of misinformation.
It's not
It's
the
not
same
new.
now.
So when it is the same.
Is
It
the
is the
gun
same.
problem in America? Are guns the same in America today as they were in 1800?
I
Or
don't know why
musket
we're getting
balls?
to guns.
Because it's another issue that you're talking about it in 1800 time. Like we're in 2021. The issues today are completely different from newspapers, even in the way media is being presented. With when you go on Facebook and you are like a Trump supporter, you are being shown only videos of black people rioting. That's why so
Wait,
many people think Black Lives
if
Matter is a
you're a
violent
Republican,
organization
if
because
you're
they're
a
being
wait,
shown a
wait,
media
wait, wait, wait,
landscape of a
wait, wait,
different reality.
wait.
So are
If you're
liberals.
if you're a slave owner in the South, right? Are you reading a bunch of journals that are explaining why abolition is important, or are you exclusively reading newspapers that say that slavery is great?
In the South, if you were born in the South, you were taught from birth that black people were not human beings and they were your slaves. We didn't need the social media algorithm to make a comeback. We're making a comeback right now. We're going back. We are regressing right now as a result of these algorithms coming back and spreading disinformation like this and it's like Rush Limbaugh on steroids. If you look on Facebook, the top 10 recommended posts, out of 10, 8 of them are Ben Shapiro. The other 2 are Steven Crowder and Tucker Carlson. Those are the top 10 things on Facebook that are being spread right now. People who lie out the ass on almost every issue because of the social media algorithms pumping up lies because they're sensationalized. And by the way, if there is a blatant lie on the other side when it comes to a war or something, I would want a panel to review that as well. And I'm not saying the panel would be perfect, but if there's disinformation anywhere, you have to make it as objective as possible, just like you do with court systems, just as you do with any organization that has
This is
appointments
not a
that have
court
to be
system.
confirmed,
You're
that
not
have to be
describing a court.
confirmed
Please
through
don't,
like the Senate and through the House.
please don't compare this to a court system. You're not describing a court system. That's just not true. A court system, in a court system, you're innocent until proven guilty. So if you're describing something by which you
I
have
mean,
to
if there's a legal
prove in
case
a
based on
court of
something
law,
like lies,
if you're
because if you have
suggesting
a
that you have
civil
to
case,
prove, wait, if you're suggesting that you have to prove in a court of law that something is demonstrably a lie, right, and that it was known to be a lie, which is what we have, that's called libel. It's already a rule. If what you're arguing for is libel, that's very different than what I was under the impression you were describing. Are you describing libel, or are you describing kicking people off platforms because you have not proven in a court of law, you have not gotten to a point of a jury of your peers, you have not done the kinds of work that are required to actually put someone in jail, but you still want to kick this person off of the platform, or you still want to block their media?
I'm trying to find what the wording was of the lawsuit versus Tucker Carlson.
Do you believe that you should be innocent until proven guilty?
Yeah,
Why?
because that's how the legal system needs to function. So there's no brash
Why?
decisions being made, and we have to try out all the evidence.
Why?
1 second.
Because it seems to me that if you say that we should allow people to be innocent until proven guilty, by definition, you are presumably going to allow a lot of people who are guilty to run free, right? You could easily change the setting and say that you have to be proven innocent rather than being proven guilty,
Yeah,
and
I think
then
that'd
almost
be
certainly you'd
fine.
have a lot fewer guilty people running around. You think that'd be fine? I hope you're kidding.
For this case, if we have people
No, no,
who
no.
are
I'm saying in general. I'm saying as a way that we build our legal system. I hope you're kidding that you think that that's fine.
no, what are we talking about now?
Do you think that it's okay to change the rule of our law from being innocent until proven guilty to guilty until proven innocent?
No,
Why?
because
Joel, you can't just say because. What does that mean?
because I'm trying to find this. What was this case over again? I never actually looked up the Tucker Carlson thing. I just know it was something over defamation, right? What's up? Wait, McDougal? It was over her? Oh, that's dumb. So I guess there are no functions in the legal system to deal with something like this. I'm trying to find an actual court case that has to do with like media companies calling for some type of violence or whatever. If we have
Yeah,
no function
uh,
other than
the reason,
like a regulation agency, then
just to clarify for the chat, Cloud was asking why I'm asking that question. The reason I'm asking the question of whether it matters if we're innocent until proven guilty or guilty until proven innocent is if you're kicking people off of platforms without being able to prove that they are guilty, you are by definition treating them as though they're guilty without proving that they're guilty, right? When we just allow people to be knocked off of platforms and we don't show that they're actually guilty, they actually have done something that is illegal, or have actually done something, as Joel is sort of trying to broaden it here, that is dishonest in some way, you're suggesting that they're guilty until proven innocent. You're not saying that they're innocent until proven guilty, and that is a dangerous precedent to be building in relationship to our broader responsibilities as a government.
Sorry, I'm dying.
No, I feel you. It's the first day of classes, and I'm already like flipoopity boop. You know, very flipoopity boop.
Okay, if Tucker Carlson went on TV tomorrow and he said somebody needs to, I don't know, we could use an extreme, somebody needs to kill Nancy Pelosi, is there a way in which you think he should be held
Call for
accountable?
violence. Yeah, of course.
And
That's
if
call for violence.
but how close to that line can you get before, because if it got to the point where they were just tiptoeing along that line, getting closer and closer to saying that without actually saying that, and Tucker just keeps on saying things like,
The answer, yeah, the answer is
it's
that
like
I'm
the
not a
cap.
lawyer.
Do you think the Capitol was caused by rhetoric from Trump? Do you think that would be considered calling for violence?
The answer is that I'm not a lawyer, but that if there are lawyers who think that this is a legitimate, if there are prosecutors who think this is a legitimate argument, that in that case, then they should be brought to court, right? But I don't think that the responsibility is the responsibility of, you know, some random imbecile who's hanging out as a tech bro in Silicon Valley. I don't think they're the ones who should be making these decisions. I think that those are decisions that should be on the attorney general, right?
Yeah. Somebody said in chat, again, innocent until proven
They don't
guilty
like me
only
very much. They
applies
think I'm a
to
debate.
criminal law, not civil law or administrative law. I'm not a lawyer. FF's for real. BRB something. Shouldn't have to be illegal to be regulated. I'm just trying to think about, now that we're talking about this, how I would design this agency. And the one from the UK, and this, it's hard for me to really argue on the basis of how it's structured because I didn't really think about how I would structure it. I just assumed I'd do it in a similar way to how appointments are currently done in the US, and then it'd be like a panel of people that would look at this, and maybe, oh crap, and I don't know how that would branch off into some type of proceeding to make sure, like, hey, does this qualify as something that needs to be shut down or not? Is Tucker Carlson gonna cause violence? If violence does happen and it's drawn back to Tucker Carlson, is there any way to hold him accountable? And I want to look up more about Ofcom and how that is done, because that's how the UK does it. They have had broadcasting laws, and I don't know how Canada does it. I might have to get some Canadians in here, but they have another thing where like Fox News isn't there. Rush Limbaugh isn't really on the radio. I don't know if that's because of demand or something with the government, because I know Canada is a pretty sane country. It's like if California was its own country. Even the conservatives there are talking pretty liberal compared to what the U.S. is doing. Like the conservatives up there are talking about infrastructure spending and funding childcare and stuff. I'm like, wow, that's a real conservative, huh? But yeah, I'd have to see how all this.
Yeah. So why don't we flip it on its head then, and let's perhaps, instead of me like attacking your stance, how about you attack my stance? So my stance would be that we do these forks. I feel like you have a basic understanding of the forks, right? What would be your argument against them?
I don't know. It seems like from how you described it, it seems like a Wild West sort of like. Yeah, I just don't. I can't really see. This is the thing. I'll have to look at this and get back to you because I don't want to make any direct arguments on something that I don't fully understand, because I think that's weak sauce. I know some people would want to do that, but I don't really have my things against that. I think we both went through our like principle with how we look at it, because so I want to let's do like a wrap up on this so we can get to the Afghanistan stuff you wanted to talk about. My overall thing is, I agree that it needs to be built in a future-proof way. I think nothing in democracy is ever going to be perfect, but it needs to be done in a way that does have checks on it. It needs to be like Right now, Biden appoints people to certain programs and they have to get certified in the Senate. Maybe we do something like that. Maybe there's a triple process where it's like the House, Senate, and the president need to all go through this. And maybe, the House appoints a certain number of people. There's like a committee that appoints them. We'd have to go through that process to make this a good regulation agency. And I'd only want it to really tack on to the extreme cases, maybe bringing cases to media companies like this person is lying. They need to stop blatantly lying about this. This has been disproven by 99% of scientists. If they don't stop this, we will. I don't know. I don't really know how they would punish this company if they allowed like Tucker to keep on saying things about like. But they do it in a smart way. Like Fox News does it in a way that's not too overt to really get any cases thrown at them too aggressively, because they do it like, I'm not saying don't get the vaccine, but, or they're saying like, I'm not saying COVID's not real, but, or I'm not saying Afghanistan was good or bad. Like, I'm not saying Islam is a violent religion, but they're saying stuff like that to get around the edges. So I'd want to look for a practical solution to lower the rate of radicalization from the internet algorithms, because like I said before, QAnon and Parler, those are things that are not self-sufficient. They do not grow from within. They don't multiply by themselves because they don't have access to algorithms. And these algorithms are the number one reason radical forces are growing within this country. Your examples about like the past, in my opinion, don't apply today. I think it's really outdated to look at it like that, because the nature of what we're facing today is completely, completely. I'm sorry,
All right.
I keep on coughing. Are completely and fundamentally different from what we were facing before. And I'm not gonna reply to your like closing statement thing. Or wait, let me see
Okay.
DBZ's question here. DBZ has good questions sometimes. What happens when a media speaker takes this stance? This is just my opinion. Or no one would take what they say seriously. Well, we talked about that a little bit with Tucker
We did talk about
Carlson.
that. Yeah.
Sounds like you want more intelligence agencies, which is which is okay, but all they do is monitor data. The thing is,
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind if we put a limit on data. The EU is doing some steps towards this, but limiting data monitoring so that these algorithms can't be as predatory as they are right now. That's another thing I would be for. Instead of more counterintelligence, maybe less of spying from private corporations, uh, because what they're doing right now, making so much money off of our information, is kind of disgusting. We should be having a choice where our information goes. Maybe we can have companies compete over who uses our data or not. One idea I actually had was, what if we had a good Google competitor through like antitrust or whatever, that said, we are not going to steal your money. But if we do, we'll give you a cut of the money we're selling. We're going to give you a cut of the information money we're making from selling your information. Or like, if you pay us $5 a month, we're not going to sell your information at all, or something like that. There's some solutions for that, but I'm going to let you do a closing statement thing.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then we'll move on to the Afghanistan thing.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. So to the first thing of the newspaper example, I do stand by that. The reason I stand by it is I think that certainly in the case of prior to the Civil War, I think it is inarguable that the media that was being consumed by people in the South was exclusively pro-slavery, and the reason for that is partly because of the fact that they were pro-slavery, but also it was partly, and to clarify, I'm speaking, of course, about white people, specifically upper middle class and upper class white people who might themselves own slaves, or at the very least were likely involved in plantations. So people who were intensely racist people. These are people who exclusively saw media that was in favor of slavery. Slavery is disgusting, and I don't know how we could have changed the laws in relation to media to change that. I think the only way to change the laws there are in relation to slavery itself. The media is not the problem. The problem is the slavery. And I feel the exact same way about the COVID nonsense. I feel the exact same way about all of that. Right. The problem is not that there is media that is bad. The problem is that there are people who want to hear that media, and the reason for that is because there is a serious problem around COVID denial. There's a serious problem around all of that. And in order to get around that, in order to change people's minds, the way that you do that is not by trying to just block their ability to read the things that they want to read. The way that you do that is by actually giving them some other version of a narrative that's going to be something that's going to be more palatable to them. In terms of this Google competitor thing that you're trying to propose, I don't think that that's possible unless people have access to the same underlying content. As I was explaining in the context of the fork, like, you can't make a new YouTube tomorrow. It's just not going to happen, because literally all of the YouTubers are exclusively on YouTube. They're not about to upload, 100 years, not 100 years, 10 years, whatever it's been that YouTube's been around, worth of content all onto your platform as well. To get an equivalent amount of content onto your site would literally cost well in excess of $100 billion just to convince all of these people to actually that it's worth their while.
Yeah, and the
To put
data
this stuff
storage and
onto
the
theirs.
servers, that's
Yeah, and the
pretty
data
impossible.
storage and all of that, it's impossible. You can't do it. The only way to do it is if you have a fork. That's the only way that you can actually have competitive fight between Google. And so that matters for advertising. It matters for data storage. It matters for security reasons, because I'm very concerned about not just the United States spying, but also perhaps more so, actually not perhaps more so, definitely more so, China and Russia spying. And yeah, I think that there's a huge number of reasons that these all point to the need for us to get a fork. These all point to the need for us to have an ability to have a media that is a media consumption that is all based on the same underlying news information, all based on the same underlying data, but that is forked as the actual audience desires. If you have other points, we can go over them. But if not, I'm happy to go into
Just the
Afghanistan.
one thing about the newspaper example again. I just think this is a totally new and unique problem, so we need a new modern set of guidelines. And another big issue with pushing for this is the lawmakers doing it. There is that infamous Facebook conference where it's like Mark Zuckerberg was talking. Oh, I forget exactly what the person said, but it was something so simple about Facebook, and then the 90-year-old man had no idea how Facebook worked. So that's a really difficult thing, having so many old people in government that have no idea what the problem is currently. If we did get an organization or like a not an organization, but like a committee through to monitor this stuff, then it would be hard because I don't think the people working today would be able to effectively do that. And I don't want to sound like an Andrew Yang tech bro, like we need more tech bros in there. Like I don't want to, that was a Andrew Yang argument, but it is true, a lot of people are too old. But I think this is a whole new issue. Tristan said the problem with the pandemic is that the media is bad. How do you think there is mass COVID denial? I just think the internet's a totally different thing. If you disagree, then you disagree, but I think you I
Yeah,
just personally think that's wrong.
the reason I disagree is I think that we've always said that, right? When we first had printed, I mean, recall that first of all, it is true to some extent. It is certainly true that there is a dramatic change. Arguably, the end of the Middle Ages was because paper, right? It's because of Martin Luther. It's because there's a huge Reformation. There was a Counter-Reformation in response to it. There was a huge change to religious doctrine. There was a huge change to doctrine in terms of government because of the creation of paper. It is just a fact that made huge changes. It's true. It's also true that there were huge changes when we first got radio. It's also true that we had huge changes when we first got television. I forget whose debate it was, but there was one version of it. There was one debate that happened, a presidential debate, where virtually everyone who who heard it on the radio thought that one candidate won. I think it was Nixon, some ugly candidate, and then some pretty candidate like JFK or whoever it was. Almost everyone who watched it on television thought that he won. That's not random. It's a real thing that really did affect people. The fact that we now have televisions in all of these houses had a huge effect. You're right that it also has a huge effect when we had the internet. It's a huge effect. All of this is real. But it does not change the underlying fact
But
that
just
just
one thing
because
on
these yeah.
that's
Mhm.
also different. When you're making a
Yeah.
newspaper for broad mass appeal and a television show for broad mass appeal, you don't have that ability to look at, because both of us have our individual profiles out there. They know exactly how to market to us, and that ability. There is a documentary that's really normy about it, but it's called like oh my God, The Great Hack or something about Cambridge Analytica. Look up Cambridge Analytica then if you haven't before. It goes into a lot of the disinformation behind. It was a company overseas
So
that made a lot of money off of spreading disinformation, and the Trump campaign worked with them a lot to know how exactly to penetrate certain people and manipulate them. They went through
these
millions of separate profiles and knew
Mhm.
how to attack people based off that. You're not getting that same thing with television or newspaper. So I understand your argument that it's like all throughout history we have said every because people often say this about the end, I mean, the end of democracy. There has been points in the past 100 years that has been or that have, I don't know, I'm tired, but that was way worse than the Capitol riots. Like the civil rights movement was way worse, and back then they were saying the country's going to collapse, and now they're also saying it's going to collapse. So it's like a fallacy of like, oh, now it's going to happen or whatever. I understand your argument there, but I think there's just key differences. And by the way, I know I said before I was going to stop responding, but I'm actually going to stop now. You have the final word because I want to get to
Okay,
the
yeah. When you
Afghanistan
say that
thing.
I think that when you're what you're describing is a difference in scale. I don't think it's a difference in kind. So I think that it is true that we have better ability to target messages to a specific person than we've have ever before. But that's not difference in kind. It's also true that you had. It's also true that you had a different ability to do that when we had one network or three networks, whatever it was, versus when we had 100 networks on television. It's also different when or channels rather, not networks. It's also different when we had one radio station versus 100 radio stations. It's different when blah, 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 blah. All of this is different. All of this is different in scale. Your ability to target does change, but the capacity to target, I don't think is a difference just in kind. I think it's a difference in scale, and I don't therefore think that we should be treating it as a fundamental distinction. I think we should be seeing it as a sliding thing. Okay. With that said, let's go on to Afghanistan.
Okay, let's take a 1 minute timeout.
Oh, I'm going to run to the bathroom because
all right, sounds good.
bathrooms are very important. I will attend to society at a later moment.
All right, 20 people here. Talk to me. What's going on? What's going on, guys? How's your day? How's your night going? So why not try to stop big tech from accessing your data? Dying seems like the bigger issue. Yeah, I said that too. I said that before. We could look at what they're doing for spying. The EU does a much better job with that issue. With that problem of them having our information. You had a lady call you today saying she had a master in public administration, saying that vaccine mandates were communism, socialism in California. Dang. Facebook State University, FSU. Hell yeah. That's my favorite university. I cannot talk for this long. I keep coughing. I don't know why.
I'm back. I don't know if you're back, but I'm back. Is he not back? Oh, he's not back.
Hello?
Oh, you are back. Okay. Hi.
DBZ said, I have been enjoying seeing how the transformation of identity has occurred in the last decade. Identity. Do you mean like with social media and all that stuff? I feel often... Oh, let me actually stop recording really quick so I can make sure I get this segment easy to edit because I hate editing. Oh my god.
Editing is not ideal.
He said, I have been enjoying seeing how the transformation of identity has been occurring in the last decade. So the transformation of identity.
Sounds are not sounding.
Dropped frames. I'm getting dropped frames. Oh no, I'm lagging.
Oh.
I was lagging. I'm now back on. F's in chat. Ugh. Tell you what, streaming from a laptop is not ideal.
Yeah.
I even got a decent laptop too, so I could stream at school, and it's still not working too good.
That's not good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've never become a streamer. Maybe I should become a streamer. Should consider that. But yeah, I don't know. Not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me your overall stance on Afghanistan. Do you think it was a good idea to leave?
Wait, is everybody here? Can everybody see? Okay. Afghanistan. So, like I said in my video, I think Biden didn't see any middle ground at all. I think he knew it would have been unpopular to dedicate if he had to, if he felt the need to add more troops. I felt like he knew that would be unpopular. Pulling out, and so like he thought there were only two options. Do you disagree with that? Do you think there was a middle ground that he could have found?
I think there was a middle ground between what and what. Between staying and not staying?
Because his two absolute positions were, we either need to reapply ourselves to the region or we have to get out completely. Because one of the big things keeping the Taliban back were like U.S. air strikes, and the way they have been moving in for the past few years, they have integrated themselves within the rural areas of Afghanistan. So they were already pretty integrated moving into the more metropolitan areas. The U.S. Funding was like upholding, it seemed, these metropolitan areas, which represented like city liberals. Those are the people that wanted to leave Afghanistan. They were not, and they were not fans of the fundamentalism, but the more conservative, rural people from there were not as opposed to the Taliban moving in. And the way they systemically disconnected the central government from operating the entire huge ass country made it very difficult. And I felt like Biden didn't want to, although the drone strikes they're doing now are frustrating me a little bit, just because I don't like retro. We could talk about that then, though. What's your general opinion on it?
So my general opinion is we had to get the fuck out, and we had to get the fuck out like 10 years ago, but we didn't. And so getting out now is significantly better than staying.
So what did you disagree with me on?
So I think that my concern is I think that your video I think focused more than I think I'm comfortable with on the problems of it being unpopular in the moment, which I don't think is like a reasonable way to look at this. Because the problem is that like when you look at it from the short-term political perspective, rather than the broader like what is like, okay, so there's sort of two different things that we have to think about in politics, right? There's one thing of how do we accrue capital, like how do we accrue the public support in order to get shit done, and the second question is like what shit do we need to get done, right? And so I would argue that like one of the things that we needed to get done is getting out of Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is costing us literally $50 billion ish a year, and that's insane, and it's costing us like thousands of lives in of Afghans, and it's costing dozens of lives of Americans every year. And that is just too high a price for us to be willing to pay.
So I was doing like a public opinion analysis of it because I do think the media played a big role in making people mad about it. I think a lot of Americans were told to be mad about this, and that's one of the reasons they are. Even Democrats seemed to be really upset with how Biden did it, because a lot of people, the easy thing to say now is, I wanted to get out, but how Biden did it, I don't like how he did it. Because I think people in general, and this has been throughout all of history, of course, they're very disconnected from what war is, from what we are doing over there. Every
Mm-hmm.
drone strike from the past 20 years, people didn't care about. But now we're hyper focusing on everything that happened during the withdrawal. Although getting 100,000 people out with only one major attack is actually an insane feat, and people don't understand that, and they're complaining about we left equipment there. What do they think happens after a war? Do they think we just get to walk out and take everything?
Yep.
Or like, oh, we should have pulled out before telling them. The moment that we tried to evacuate that many people, the country would have collapsed no matter when we did it. So the pullout was going to be messy no matter what. So my big thing was, I'm really frustrated with how many Americans are looking at it, because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know much about American politics, let alone Afghanistan. They don't know that Afghanistan is a huge like rural country, and we were just like funding a couple of cities to stay afloat as like little DMZs almost. And we were barely letting that happen. And then the only reason we were able to keep what we were doing happening is because of major drone strikes. That's the only reason we were able to even keep what we're doing there. Like we only I know we had a decent number of troops there, but it was 6 to like 8,000 at this point. After Trump's minor reduction. Yeah, it's just so frustrating because people got what they asked for, but they didn't realize what it really entailed. So that was my big thing, and I think you'll probably agree with most of that. But my
Yeah, I
video
do.
analyzing American public opinion, I was just looking at that for the political repercussion of Biden, because I'm trying to dissect what made Biden do it overall. So that's my big thing. I don't know if you have any opinions on that. So this isn't really even a debate, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what is
No,
your
I
big
agree.
thing
I
about
don't think
why
it
do you
is.
think Biden did this? Because when we look at presidents and why they do certain foreign policy decisions, I don't know if Biden saw either we go back in like with more force, or we should pull out. I don't know if Biden felt on a personal level that this is the right time. Did he make a political calculation? I think it might have been a combination of all those things.
I think that Biden was second in command, hypothetically, not actually, but second in command in the Obama administration, and I think that he had a front row ticket to see what was happening in this region for a awful 8 years. And I mean, those were some deadly years, right? I mean, some of those years were really quite awful in terms of not just the amount of money that we were spending, but also in terms of the number of lives that we were losing. I mean, there were a couple of years there where we were losing hundreds of troops every year. In total, we've lost 2,000 plus troops in the conflict. Just American troops. That's not to speak anything about the national military police of the Afghan military, which is 66 to 69,000 total, which is insane. It's a huge. I mean, the total death toll here is well in excess of 170,000 people. This is according to Watson from Brown, or the Watson Institute rather, at Brown University. And so like, this is just crazy numbers. And I think that he had come to the realization that we were never going to win this war. There was never a point that, I mean, to be quite honest, I don't think there ever was a time that we were going to win this war, unless the definition of winning is to kill Osama bin Laden. At which point, like, if that's the goal, if the goal is to kill Osama bin Laden, going in at all was probably a mistake. I think the best way to kill Osama bin Laden is to put a bounty on his head, right? I mean, the day after 9/11, I don't know why we didn't just say everyone involved immediately, like, you have $1 billion bounty on your head, and $2 billion if you manage to bring the person back, these guys back to us alive, and just it will happen, right? If that happen, if you put that kind of a bounty on someone's head, that person will be found, right? So like I don't know why any of this happened even in the first place, and we are $2.3 trillion deep. We are hundreds of thousands of lives deep, and there is no end in sight. I think that he recognized correctly that it was either a question of him managing to have the bravery to do this now, or him not having the bravery to do this now, allowing us to lose dozens of American lives every year, thousands of lives of the Afghan people every year, and billions of U.S. tax dollar money that we simply don't have for the totality of his presidency, and then just kicking the road down, or kicking the can down the road rather, for the next president to fix. And I think that he had the bravery to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the consequences in the short term to protect the country in the long term.
I'm really angry with American privilege in this moment, with how people looked at the entire situation, because we are so disconnected from war. America has had 9/11, but when it comes to wars fought on our own soil, even through like World War II and stuff, we never really had an invasion of our comfort in America. And now when we look at this situation in Afghanistan, after bombing it to shit for 20
Mm-hmm.
years, killing tons of children and women and civilians for all this time, stealing resources for big companies, for oil companies, getting defense contractors really rich in the process. After doing all of this, making unstable region even more destabilized, and spending all this money on upholding a government that was never even real in
Yeah,
Afghanistan, and a
it was
force
never
that
real.
wasn't even ever put together. I mean, the president or the prime minister left like a week before it officially went down, before it officially
Right.
collapsed. He
Right.
was just there as a figurehead. Like, they didn't have any operation other than what was funded by America. And now, after 20 years of people calling for the pullout, Biden finally, and he should get major credit for this historically, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I
Sure.
think it took tremendous courage as a president to pull out. And I mean, as a president, of course, it's privileged to be a president and to not be like a soldier that has to actually be there. And of course, rest in peace to the people. And by the way, I think like 5 of the Marines that died in that terrorist attack, in that bombing, weren't even old enough to legally drink yet. And
Mm-hmm.
they joined the army. They were born in 2001, the year of 9/11. And the reason we got into this war was because Americans wanted revenge. There was no practical reason. There was no real reason for killing Osama bin Laden. Our bloodlust, our want and our hunger for revenge with Osama bin Laden
Yeah.
caused thousands of other Americans to die as a result of 9/11, caused trillions of dollars to be thrown out the window. And now it's what the American public wants, because after this terrorist attack happened, what did Biden say? Biden had to go on stage and say, "We want revenge. We will not let these people walk until we get revenge for what happened at the airport." But what happened when Biden got his revenge in his initial drone strike? A bunch of kids died in the
Mhm.
initial attack. So we have this thing in America where we don't understand what's actually happening. We get really angry. We never have to suffer the consequences. But on the pullout, where we get 100,000 people out in a couple weeks, which is crazy, a couple bad things happen, and people are so surprised because they never
Right.
realized how dirty this was before. They only realized the American consequences of this war. They never even took a second to comprehend what happened over there. And of course, the
Mhm.
equipment being left there, that is par for the course. We left most of it disabled so that it's not even operable. It never will be operable. Like the helicopters we left there and everything. We don't just literally leave them there, but we're not going to be able to just like fly them out and say, "All right, guys, bye, we're done here." This is a very unstable, dangerous part of the freaking world that we jumped in, we dove in, and we just took control of it for 20 years. And it just gets me really upset because
Yeah.
it's after finally we got what we were asking for, and people are yelling at Biden for it. Trump wanted to do a troop reduction. He never even planned to like fully pull out with his designed date. Um, I don't know. This is just an issue I have with a lot of people in
Yeah. So
general,
I guess
just
I'm
not
curious.
realizing every angle to this. But
Mhm. I guess I'm curious about your video then, because I mean I watched it, and it to me it sounded pretty um, focused on the short term poll issues, which I gotta be honest are just not the issues that I'm focused on right now. Like I just don't know why that would be like it's the equivalent of saying that after a really difficult, awful fight. I don't know the answer to whether or not he did go up or down. But after fighting in the trenches to manage to get the Affordable Care Act, maybe Obama's poll numbers went down a little bit in order to get that done while he was fighting with the Senate, while he was fighting with the Congress. Like, okay, who cares? He
but
managed to
that
get the Affordable Care Act.
I was saying the exact same thing that I just said,
Yeah,
but I was doing it
yeah.
in more of a really neutral, like matter of fact, like, oh, this is
Mhm.
what people are going to do to respond to it. I think Biden definitely should have done it. But I am upset with the political consequences because I know where it comes from. It does come from ignorance, and it comes from the privilege of living in America. We don't have to
Mhm.
ever care about this stuff, and people don't learn about it in school. We
Right.
just learn about World War II and like, oh, bombs, so cool. People don't even like we don't understand. And by the way, comrade, I don't know how to say the second part of your name, but it's a presidential
Let
system there.
let's go.
I know it's a big central government in Afghanistan because they have a lot of power in their central
The
government.
government of Afghanistan was the United States of America. The
True.
president of Afghanistan was Joe Biden. That is
But
no longer true.
but the way the government did run there, that they did have, it was really centralized, and that's one reason the rural areas, the centralized government couldn't really govern. They had no way to get
Mhm.
places and to communicate and all that stuff. The Taliban systemically dislocated the government from
Sure.
managing rural areas, and the rural people didn't want to work with the government either. They believe in a more radical form of Sharia and all that stuff. Um, but anyway, what was I saying about with how people look at this crisis?
Yeah,
Um,
you were saying that the crisis is seen from like a vantage point that doesn't quite. That I mean, I agree with you. That the United States, the average American, does not have the level of nuance in foreign policy that I think they ought to, and I would argue have an obligation to if we're going to be this entrenched in foreign policy. Like,
and the
I don't think
media
that
too.
someone
I can
who's
blame the media too. The
yeah.
media is where they're
But the
getting their
thing is,
information from.
so here's my stance on this though. The average person in New Zealand, I don't think has any better of an understanding of foreign policy than the average American. But it doesn't matter because New Zealand isn't fucking with everyone all of the time. But we are. So if we either have to decide to like understand what we're doing or stop doing it.
Yeah, stop asking for it because it is a conflicting thing. I personally do not want bad things to happen. I do not want people to die. It makes me very
I
sad when
too do
people
not
die,
want bad things to happen. Yes.
but people the way people respond to what's happening in the world, I don't believe them because when we're overseas, um, we got to get out. People are dying, we got to get out. But the moment we're not there, oh, we got to go back in. We cannot let them walk. These are disgusting people who must be held accountable. We should be going back into these areas. So the moment we pull out of Afghanistan, Americans are clamoring for ISIS K to be bombed to glass or whatever. Like, oh, one American died. We should bomb the entire country. Like, what do you want? Do you want a
Yeah.
million civilians to be, or whatever number of civilians to be killed by U.S. airstrikes? Do you just not care about their lives as much as you care about like American lives? And I'm okay with some level of nationalism when it comes to that, but not to really inhumane sociopathic levels. Like, of course, if you had to choose between like I always pose this question to people to really test them. Like, would you rather save 10,000 Americans or 10,001 people from a different country? I think most Americans would choose.
10,000 Americans, of course.
Yeah,
10,000 Americans over 100,000 non-Americans. 10,000
yeah.
Americans over a
I think
million
that level of
non-Americans. Look,
nationalism,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how it tests out if you want to debate it morally. But I just
Yeah, we can do
know,
that.
relatively speaking, I think that is a general accepted thing in the world. I think 99% of people, or like a high number of people, would agree with that. But even with that, you should not be going out of your way to cause maximum harm like we do. But I was talking about the atomic bomb before I went on the other tangent. We do not understand how terrible the atomic bomb was in Hiroshima. Like, Americans, when we learn about that, I don't know if you had a similar experience, but learning about that bomb, I was under the impression that we did that for a quick end to the war. Not that the war was already over, basically.
Mhm.
Like when I first learned about it. Also, when we talked about
It was
World War
also not the
II,
worst thing we did in Japan. Carpet bombing, so many more people died of the carpet bombs than died in the nukes. I mean,
yeah,
the nukes were like a
that was
third,
so
if even
overt,
that.
though.
Yeah,
Like the way we talk
yeah.
about it today, the way I was taught World War II, it was like we were playing Call of Duty World War II. That's how I felt like we were going through it. Like, oh, trench warfare, the old gun, so classic. The
Hmm.
atomic
Hmm.
bomb. Look at this documentary about the atomic bomb, so cool. Meanwhile, you look at it like that's probably one of the largest. I don't know if you call bombings terrorist attacks, but that's probably one of the biggest crimes against humanity. That's up there when it comes to unjustified bombs being dropped because the war was basically over. Japan was probably already going to surrender. Like it was
Yeah.
just, like we have the ability to be so naive about these things,
Yeah.
and I think that lack of education is really damaging overall, and
Yeah.
that
So
really frustrates me.
I do want to get into the conversation. Just we've been agreeing for too much for too long. So we have to get
Oh no.
into the fight. Okay. To this question of the 10,000 Americans or the 10,001, or let's just go with a million because it's more fun that way. It's more juicy. And I look more like an evil egomaniac, whatever it is. So here's the claim. I think that the job of the United States government is to be the union of the people. I think that we are. I mean, that's the literal framework of the Constitution. It is to say that we are by the people for the people. Eagle, right? Whatever it is. And so, like, I don't think that a union's job, if you're a union for just a normal union for workers in a factory, is to protect people who are not part of the union. I think their job is to protect the members of the union, and I think that the job of a government is to protect the people of the government, and that is to say you and me as Americans.
But what
And
about you
to
as an
clarify,
American?
what about me as an American?
Your value judgment. Should you be putting American lives over? Okay,
So,
so is
I'm a
that
relational utilitarian. Yeah.
that's like self-sustaining though, right? If you're valuing American lives, then
Mhm.
you would want other Americans to value your life over other countries. But
Mhm.
also, if other countries could value your life to an acceptable amount, you want that as well. And that's why we participate in things like international organizations and we set like a standard globally for like how
Yeah.
we do war and stuff.
So I'm a relational utilitarian. So I would say the same thing about a number of things. So I would say, for example, I'm in Pittsburgh, right? The government of Pittsburgh should be doing what's in the interest of Pittsburgh, not what's in the interest of Monroeville. I have nothing against the people of Monroeville. They're just not part of Pittsburgh. And therefore, I don't think that when we're crafting, for example, our transport system within the context of Pittsburgh, with Pittsburgh money being spent on it, that should be done in such a way that it's going to help the people of Monroeville rather than the people of Pittsburgh, even if the people of Monroeville genuinely would be aided. That's not our job. What is our job is when we're thinking about the state level, that includes both you and it also includes me. We're both in Pennsylvania. And when we're talking about the national level, now all of a sudden the national government has obligations to Flint, Michigan in a way that Pittsburgh certainly doesn't. So when we're talking about the international level, like I'd also say that yes, there's an obligation of the international community, but I think that international community is an aggregated thing, not of the individual countries, but rather of the totality of them. bad. Yeah, the Vietnam War, the total number of U.S. casualties was 58,220. For context, in comparison, the total number of U.S. casualties in the context of the war in Afghanistan was only 2,442. They say you're muted again.
Hear me? Oh, they couldn't hear me. I just said all I said was one of the reasons the death toll is different is because the nature of war changed. Before we had a lot of bodies on the ground and trench war and or not trench. Oh my god, guerrilla warfare. Uh, I said serving a tour in Afghanistan and serving in
You seem to
Vietnam
continue to be
is
muted.
very different.
Oh,
No, I'm good now. I'm good now. I
you're
fixed
good
it.
now? Okay, I believe
I
you.
can see the bar moving, and I also said that warfare changed. Of course, we have drones now. Before we had more people on the ground, so the nature of the Vietnam War was a lot more disgusting than
Mhm.
Afghanistan was, even with how bad Afghanistan was. And Vietnam. Did I say that? Could you hear the thing about the war movement, guys? I said about how the war movement for Vietnam wasn't in comparison to Afghanistan. It was a lot bigger, a lot more powerful. Afghanistan had some pushback, but not really. So I think that was everything. Yep, but audio's back. Bishop Bling, this is the first time I ever saw you in chat. What's up? And also Gets Elias.
Yes, Elias.
I'm
Yeah.
getting some new viewers in because of I don't know if you saw my channel lately, but my Kyle
Dude,
Kalinske
you have some
reactions,
serious beef with Tom
my
McDonald.
Kyle Kalinske and Tom McDonald reactions always pop
Yeah.
off. Like
Some serious beef with Tom McDonald. I love Tom McDonald, of course. I'm a huge Tom McDonald fan, obviously.
they
Yeah.
hate me so much. It's really I think I'm gonna do a reaction to his new song, but I'm gonna
Mhm.
edit it in a way that I can monetize it so I can make like a few like I make like $20 from it.
Mm.
Because my last one wasn't monetized. It got like 35,000 views. I would have made like $40, which is bad for 40,000 views, but I could have made
Yeah,
$40 still. Like that would have been nice. I think I'm
that's
gonna
cool.
edit the
Yeah,
next one to get
yeah,
that much
that's
money
fair.
out of it. Just keep on spamming Tom McDonald and people. My viewers hate that stuff. My actual like viewers, like they
Yeah,
hate
but
that. They hate those
the
reactions so
non-Jolah
much.
viewers.
They're
Yeah.
here for the Kyle Kalinske stuff, but that's been doing all right. The video today did really good. Did you see the Bernie Sanders kicked Kyle Kalinske? Did you see that he did that? On Crystal Kyle and
Oh yeah,
friends.
yeah, yeah. I did see that. Yeah,
Yeah, that happened a couple
yeah.
weeks ago, but I just put up the video because I knew it was gonna be
No, I
clickbait.
saw part of your video, but yeah, that whole thing. I don't. Jimmy Dore is insane. He's just genuinely insane. I don't understand Jimmy Dore. I do understand Jimmy Dore. I don't know why I said that. I completely understand him. He is trying to get money. That is the totality of Jimmy Dore. There's no like nuance around that.
I dropped the
Yeah.
Tom McDonald diss track, Papa Josh. I'm not gonna show anybody it anymore, but it was pretty bad. Um, is there anything
Yeah.
else? Do you like populism?
Do I like populism?
Yeah.
Define it for me.
Um, some people
Because I
say
feel like a lot of people have different
populism.
definitions
Okay,
of it. Yeah.
so Kyle Kalinski's definition of populism is doing good things for people. So he believes in populist democratic theory, essentially, where people are going to vote for politicians who have the best policies materially for them. So this political theory doesn't ever play out well because people are irrational in how they vote and everything. But Kyle Kalinske believes like if you fight for the people, they will fight for you. That is populist or folk democratic theory, essentially what he believes in. So his version of populism, that's why he calls like Josh Hawley or Tucker Carlson fake populists, because they talk about helping normal people, regular people, but they never back it up. Bernie Sanders is a real populist. Therefore he does actually talk about helping people and he does actually help them. He backs up the talk. When I talk about populism, I'm talking generally about my definition I usually use, I try to separate it between liberal populism and illiberal populism. So liberal populism for me would be like Bernie Sanders. So he's not an authoritarian. He believes in liberal democracy, but in times of social conflict and inequality, he is going to use people's anger to try and change or influence the current system. You can say that was like sort of an FDR as well. He was a liberal populist. FDR
Well,
actually
FDR was a bit authoritarian and
but
did
he
not
believed
entirely
in
live in
liberal
democracy.
values. He
Yeah.
believed in civil liberties, and he believed in, although he had unilateral power, he believed in the concept of a liberal democracy. Because him and
He tried to stack the courts pretty intensely. He did a lot of things that were pretty
I
authoritarian.
agree, he was pretty authoritarian.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like it when people compare him to Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or
Mhm.
whatever, because it doesn't really
Mhm.
work. He actually, in his rhetoric, agreed a lot with what the Nazi Party was pretending to believe in. So I'd say the Nazi Party are illiberal populists. Tucker
Mhm.
Carlson is an illiberal populist. So they don't believe in liberal democracy. They don't believe in civil liberties. They don't believe in any of that. So I want to stay away from illiberal populists. So they're against liberal democracy. I think Jimmy Dore is an illiberal populist from the left. So he is just angry at liberals, at the liberal institutions, at academia, at all this stuff. Any current structure that keeps society together, he hates that. He rebels against that. And I think illiberal populists are very dangerous for systems. People like Bernie Sanders as liberal populists, I would say, can be dangerous, but they need to be very responsible in their rhetoric. So Bernie Sanders says we need to come together and fight the billionaires. He switches that rhetoric really quickly, and a lot of Bernie or busters get mad at him, or like Kyle Kalinske types. They get mad at Bernie because he'll go to working in real government again. He'll go to saying, we need to support Joe Biden against Donald Trump. We need to support the current system against a collapse of the system, and we are going to work to change the system for the better. He doesn't want a revolution. So illiberal lefties would want a revolution. So that's how I sort of look at populism, I think, generally. I don't like the Kyle Kalinske definition of like populism being a good thing or like fake pop, because I don't think populism is a good or bad thing. I think there are different characteristics to look at on how different people use populist rhetoric, because populism in general, I think, is very dangerous no matter who's using it. I think it's dangerous all around, but if you are going to use it, you need to be careful. And I think Bernie walked that line pretty effectively.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. So the first thing is, I think I'm broadly okay with your definition of populism, which is essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially that like you're using anger to try to push for your political agenda. Is that fair?
Yeah, but the political agenda, you need to be sincere about the changes you want. So you have to be like,
I'm trying to get to just populism writ large, not to this illiberal left version, this liberal version, or this sort of fake.
okay, yeah.
conservative,
So
whatever you call it.
populism is
Just
using
populism writ
anger,
large.
and then liberal and illiberal is how you're going to use it. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So I agree that that is a fair definition of populism. Under it, I don't think that you can therefore attack populism at large. The conversation is therefore about the question of how they're using that anger and who that anger is directed against.
Yeah, sure.
In the context of so let's be clear. I will absolutely condemn the actions of Jimmy Dore because I think that he is hurting us in a variety of ways. I will absolutely attack, the actions of Kyle Kalinske because I think he's also hurting us in a variety of ways. Specifically, I think that it's very dangerous when they go after people like Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is in a very dangerous seat. We are going to lose that seat if we don't manage to maintain Joe Manchin because no one else can manage to get that seat. That is not true of Kirsten Sinema. We could get that seat without Kirsten Sinema. Fuck Kirsten Sinema. We need to primary her. We need to get someone who is not Kirsten Sinema to be sitting in that seat. And I similarly feel that going after like AOC or going after someone who's an extraordinarily safe gerrymandered district, like you can do that. I don't know why we have to protect AOC like she's some like, dainty little flower. Like she is in a deeply progressive district. She is in a deeply blue, very, very safe circumstance. I don't know why we can't attack her. We can. So attacks, I think, should be going against people who are in those safe seats, and that we should be avoiding doing those same kinds of targeted attacks against people who are in more dangerous seats. So like this illiberal left version, I'm not sure if I'm entirely comfortable with that because I think that you're not distinguishing between where those attacks are going. Because I think that there's some people who can be attacked. Like attacking Nancy Pelosi is perfectly legit. Attacking AOC is perfectly legit. But attacking people who are in dangerous districts, I think, is less legit.
Well, the reason I use illiberal populist with Jimmy Dore is
Mhm.
because you see him allying or wanting to ally with people like Tulsi Gabbard, who works with far right nationalists, with people like the Boogaloo Boys, and with people like Tucker Carlson. So you see a lot of populists joining ranks against liberals often. So that's why I look at Jimmy Dore as an example of an illiberal leftist or illiberal populist left whatever. He's an illiberal in my opinion because I don't think he has any operational ideology or prescriptions. He generally just wants what he sees as pro people. So if he needs to talk about ivermectin, which he was talking about, he will talk about it. If he's going to talk about big tech censorship against the right, he'll say the right is better than the left, like he has been saying recently, because he cares, number one, about owning Nancy Pelosi and liberals. So that's why I used that categorization. And also throughout history, this has sort of
I just
worked
I
with
just don't know
like
why I care.
you asked
Why,
me my
what, like,
definition of populism.
yeah, no, my question is like in terms of tactically, why do I care that people are going after Nancy Pelosi? She's fine. She's not going anywhere. They do not have the capacity to
Well,
like destroy
because they're
Nancy Pelosi's career.
anti-democratic. That's the big thing about illiberal populists that I don't want to that I make sure to watch out for. I think Jimmy Dore is fundamentally authoritarian and anti-democratic, and I also think that of the Boogaloo Boys and of Tucker Carlson, because you usually have
I'm sorry. Do you mean uppercase Democratic or lowercase Democratic?
they're anti
Like
lowercase, like they're
democracy or
anti-democracy.
Democratic
They're
Party? Okay.
anti-liberal
Okay.
democracy in general. They're not just
Mhm.
like they don't just have disagreements. I think they literally think we should have some form of like a collapse of the current government, and they are for destabilizing the system. I don't think Bernie Sanders is for destabilization. I think he is okay with an incremental government that is stable as long as the government changes when it needs to. So during the civil rights movement, the government changed when it needed to. During the New Deal period, it changed when it needed to. During the Great Society, a little bit, it changed a little bit when it needed to. Right now, I think you can argue it's changing when it needs to, as long as we get some decent stuff through in this reconciliation package. Whenever populists rise on both sides, whether liberal or illiberal, I feel like, and this comes up too with Joe Biden, I feel like the center has to respond to those radicals. And that's one reason I think Joe Biden's taking such an aggressive position with what he's doing this presidency. I know some people on the left disagree, but I think Joe Biden sees radicals rising up on both sides, and he's trying to give the liberal populists what they want to make sure illiberal populists don't get as much power. And he's trying to make sure people can trust the government to do basic tasks, because illiberals all over the country, and this is rising with like a Trump, they are distrusting democratic institutions in general. So that's why I think it's useful to look at like this differentiation I make.
Yeah. So I think that there's a um okay, so I'm trying to be careful in the way that I describe this, because I want to be clear that I don't think that the actions of Jimmy Dore specifically, and to a lesser extent Kyle Kalinske, are defensible, because I think that they're attacking the wrong people. But at a broad level, I don't think that just being an attack dog against the Democrats from a left-wing perspective is definitionally problematic.
I don't think
Dependent,
I
yeah, go
wouldn't.
for it.
Okay, Kyle Kalinske, I wouldn't. I'm not confident to say he's a illiberal. I think he probably is a liberal populist. I think he's just he's kind of edgy, and he has tendencies that kind of frighten me because of the media he consumes on Twitter. But I think principally,
He's also just stupid. I just don't think he's a very smart guy.
I think Kyle
Yeah,
Kalinske has real principles though when it comes
yeah.
to civil liberties and stuff. I think the question that often is brought up is, would you throw away social issues if we can save the bigger picture? Kyle Kalinski's always on the middle on that issue, but he's
Mhm.
strong enough where I trust him to make sure people's rights are not taken away. Jimmy Dore, I feel like, and he has done this, and Tulsi has done this too. You have to watch that documentary by Right Wing Watch, by the way, about Jimmy Dore if you have a chance. It shows you a lot about Jimmy Dore and the far right connections and all that stuff too. So I really recommend that documentary. That's a great channel. But yeah, I wouldn't say Kyle Kalinske is really a illiberal populist. I think he's just confused right now. But I do think Jimmy Dore is for destabilization of the entire process, and pretty aggressively so. But Kyle Kalinske, I want to save him. I think he can be saved. I think he's just on Twitter too
Yeah.
much. So like,
Okay, so before my tirade, I have to attack Tristan Mendez, because Tristan Mendez is spreading lies about me. I absolutely think you can attack AOC. I never backtrack that, even remotely. Don't come on, dude, mate. I absolutely that was never backtracked. Okay, but so my claim is, I think that in order to have politics move, you need to have people who are in the trenches, people who are literally lawyers, people who are literally senators, people who are literally congresspeople, people who are literally, judges, who are literally, helping people learn English through English as a second language, people who are literally on the border as reporters, people, blah, 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 blah. All of that is all necessary. Those people who I deem to be literally in the trenches, literally doing the work themselves. But I also think that you need to have a broad ethos of people who are just moving the Overton window. And I think that that is the best version of Jimmy Dore, the best version of Kyle Kalinske that could exist, not the one that does exist, but the one that could exist, is that version.
Well, I would
of
disagree with
themselves.
that just
Well, so
because
I just want to I want to like explain it before
I agree
you
that
attack me.
it's healthy to have
Can I
people
can I
like
first
that.
like can I first
But
defend it?
the one thing
Yeah.
is that's why I would call the people who are doing that effectively liberal populists. I would call
I
the
don't
people
think
who do
that's
not
fair.
do it effectively illiberal populists. I think it is fair. I don't think illiberal people like
So
Jimmy
the
Dore
reason,
make good criticisms of the current process or anything like that. They're usually wrong on
yeah.
simple things like, for example, can the Senate parliamentarian put in, or can the parliamentarian put this into the reconciliation bill? Oh, 8 senators are against $15 minimum wage. Oh, Joe Biden can just do it if he really wanted to. Like, just shit
So
like
the
that.
reason I don't think this is fair is a number of reasons. The reason I don't think it's fair is that I don't think that it's fair to refer to these people as liberals, because I don't think they want to be referred to as liberals. And I don't think
But
that
no,
their
no, I'm not
audience
calling them
wants them to
liberals.
be referred to
I
as
think
liberals.
they're
You're saying that
so
they're liberal populists,
liberal
right?
versus illiberal is different from like liberal versus conservative. I'm talking
Versus
about
leftists. I
supporting
understand.
liberal democracy when I
But the
say that.
problem is that when so there's a couple of directions. There's a couple of nuance problems here. The first nuance is there's a problem just in terms of rhetorically calling people who are to the far left liberals is something that they're uncomfortable with, and therefore because of that, just on that face alone, I think I'm uncomfortable with the framework of suggesting that these people are liberals, because that hurts their capacity to be successful in the framework that we're
I
proposing.
agree.
Right?
What I'm saying is more of an academic phraseology, and I'd probably adjust it. I have to figure out a different way to talk about it with like normal conversations. If I said to Kyle Kalinske, if I wanted
Yeah,
to explain these dynamics, it's hard. Maybe I can say libertarian populist versus authoritarian populist or something like that, but that
well,
wouldn't exactly map out as
you can say useful or versus not useful. There's no reason to frame it in the context of
or
words
like
that
democratic or
are
anti-democratic. It's just
not
hard for me
even,
because I'm looking
no,
at
no,
illiberal.
because
I'm looking at like Hungary, and I'm saying they are
yeah,
illiberal, and then I'm looking at a different country, they are liberal. That's usually how we talk about it.
yeah. The
And
problem
I'm
is,
against
I think
academic
that
terms, but
academic terms are useful within the context of academia, but when we're in the public space talking in public conversation, I would argue that almost by definition, they have to be words that are useful from a public perspective. And I would argue that just useful versus not useful gets to the same point. And it is considerably better than reframing this as Tristan's suggesting reactionary progressive. That's actually not a
I'll think
terrible
about it. I'll think about
definition,
words.
reactionary versus non-reactionary. But the problem is I just think that like using the term phraseology that turns off a subset of the audience, specifically the subset of the audience that we're trying to get to, which is the people who are most radically to the left, at least in terms of the way that they conceptualize or speak about it, I think is bad. But so the broader point from that, though, is I just don't think that you're giving the respect to the far left that is warranted if you're trying to move marginally to the left. I don't think that
The far
going,
left. What do you mean by
yeah, to
that?
the far left. I think that in order for us to get, so like, let's take the example of healthcare. Do I actually think that having healthcare that has not just no insurance companies, but not even any private manufacturers or any private companies that are responsible, any drug manufacturers, any drug what are they called? Like pharmaceutical companies, any of that. No, of course not. I think that's a terrible idea. Do I want it to be said? Yes, I do want it to be said, because I want it to be heard by people and therefore be component of the Overton window and not be so crazy out there that people think that that's insane, that people will not possibly listen to it. Because if people do listen to it, and then after having heard that, they hear my proposal now sounds significantly less crazy.
I mean, I agree with that. That's why um but okay, the thing is that the far
Okay.
left, I'm fine
Yeah.
with the far left. I would say this is what I mean when I say my super hot take. that I said before that Vosh is a liberal and it makes people mad. And I say that for
No,
fun.
I agree with you.
Like I say
Yeah,
that
I
for
mean,
fun.
Vosh
I
is also
think
like a raging anti-Semite, but
the
that's a
thing
completely different
about
conversation. Yeah.
Vosh that he always goes back to, and that like Sam Cedar or something would always go back to, I think Vosh is like a socialist for identification reasons, mostly.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
the way they fall back to our institutions so quickly with any sign of radicalism because they're scared things are going to fall apart, that makes me say like liberal because they are really supporting the idea of liberal democracy in the purest form. They don't want to mess it up too much. They don't want to move it too quick and risk something crazy happening. They always fall back to that. When I see like Door just like going on random tirades, like for example, even Kyle Kalinske when he says this, or Crystal Ball, or Brianna Joy Gray, or anybody who is considered a populist lefty online, the way they say, "Oh, Joe Biden's a disgusting warmongering criminal with blood on his hands who deserves to die," or like something like that, that is so damaging to our arguments because when they make an argument for universal health care, the people who I need convinced are not going to listen to them because I need Nancy Pelosi voters to agree with universal health care someday because there are a lot of suburban Democrats who are really they do not want higher taxes.
Yeah.
They are Republicans with good social issues. So like I need to get those voters. So that's how I'm looking at this. It's not far left. I don't care how far left you are.
So
I don't really
yeah,
think Jimmy Dore's
so
on the left, honestly, because he'll drop Medicare for all the second his favorite candidate doesn't support
oh
it,
yeah,
like he
well
did with Tulsi
yeah, Jimmy
Gabbard.
Dore was at the moment that
Um,
Tulsi Gabbard said that
but like
she's
I
not
agree that
actually.
radicalism in some form is healthy, but I guess it depends
The
on
reason that
how
I so
much.
here's
And
here's my perfect version
is
of the
Tom
Senate.
online nowadays?
Is what?
Tom, I was gonna see if Tom's on.
I don't know who Tom is.
Tom,
But okay.
the foolery man.
Oh, Tom Foolery. I'm so sorry. I thought you were. I was confused. I think he might be actually. That'd be wonderful. You should have Tom on. But okay. So here's my stance. I think that having my perfect version of the Democratic Party would be that we have Joe Manchin like people in the Joe Manchin places like West Virginia, but the senators from New York should literally be like reading fucking Karl Marx. Okay, on the Senate floor. Okay, literally, because we're going to win New York no matter what happens, right? We're never not going to win New York. Obviously, we're going to win New York. And so when we're thinking about what the value of the Senate from that perspective is they have to vote on every single thing that we can manage to convince the Joe Manchins to get on board with. We must get that vote from the person who's living
But
in New York as well.
the,
However, I want them to also be going on these tirades publicly about how we need to go way, way, way further to the left than anyone is possibly even going to consider
I don't want to be
actually
left though.
electorally.
I don't want Karl Marx to ever be brought up in any context. I don't want
I was messing around.
leftness.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
know, but
Karl Marx is a fucking idiot.
I
Of
don't
course
want
not.
leftness to be brought up in
I
any
want them to be reading
context. I
Henry
want it to
George.
be
I want them to be doing
framed.
any of that.
I just
Yeah.
want to be framed as good thing that's good for people versus bad thing that's not good for people. Because even with the National Party,
Mhm.
the radicalism needs to be, and this is what I think AOC is good at. I think she's good at not being too radical. Like, think about how the far right moves their message further. They do it for Furrier, like they are able to do this.
The further way, yes.
They're
Yeah.
able to do it in a way that people don't even realize it. It's so subliminal. And
Mhm.
I think the way AOC can go on Good
Well,
Morning America and be very accepted, or The View and be very accepted, and the Democratic
mhm.
Party can't do much about it because she is an icon. I
Sure.
think that is very useful, and it also translates well when they're talking about like Joe Manchin. Okay. I have to shut this down soon because I'm dying. But uh,
I feel you. Yeah.
it's helpful getting Joe Manchin to do. Wait, what do I have a reaction video on? Yeah, I have a reaction video on everything with Kyle Kalinske, Jimmy Dore, or Tom McDonald. Um,
Yes.
it just the extent I think is a little bit different on how far you can push
Yeah.
on certain issues, and it needs to be framed as good and bad. Never, I
My
hate.
point,
Yeah, I don't know.
my point is simply that I just don't think that we need like if we have someone who's like Joe Manchin in New York, we're doing it wrong. We're doing it wrong. It's not a matter, even if your goal is actually to have the Joe Manchin goals, having someone who looks like Joe Manchin in New York makes Joe Manchin look insane with the context of West Virginia because we're allowing the Overton window to shift to the right. And so we have to have these intensely, like in Vermont for decades before anyone knew who he was. Bernie Sanders was saying some wild shit like gay marriage should be legal, some wild shit like we should, allow trans people to like exist, right? Some wild shit like pot legalization, right? All of this stuff back in like the fucking 1840s when he first came to office, right? Like this is insane. This guy's crazy, right? But he was able to maintain his seat. And he was also able to continuously, throughout that period of time, vote in the way that was actually beneficial to the broader capacity to actually get electoral success, while also simultaneously under under the cover of darkness, managing as well to get a bunch of really important things within that legislation as amendments, the Amendment King, as he was referred to, and so like that's really crucial. But I think that is what we need from places like Vermont. I think that's what we need from places like New York. And in order to get that, we have to constantly be bullying the people from New York. We have to constantly be bullying the people from Vermont and demanding that they be insanely left. Because if they're not, we can do better. We can't do better than Joe Manchin in West Virginia, but we can absolutely do better than Nancy Pelosi in fucking like California.
I just disagree
nonsense.
in the sense of like someone like AOC, she needs to stay where she is because she needs to endorse people. And
But it doesn't mean we can't bully her. She can keep her Senate. She can keep her
I just
spot in
don't
the
see what
Congress.
bullying would do. Like, I think she's radical enough and she's gonna do her best. If she is bad at it, great. But we just need to be bullying other politicians when they do
Who?
unpopular things more so. I don't think any
Who should
effort
we bully?
I don't think any effort should be given to bullying AOC. It should
Who
be
should we be bullying though?
Schumer. Schumer is a big one that has been bullied and has changed a couple positions on like marijuana and stuff. He actually took that as like a number one issue because he's scared AOC is going to primary him. That's at least one
And he's a
political
good
consequence
example
he's
because he's in
scared.
New York. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's
So
in New
yeah, I
York,
mean,
and
like,
she got popular. I think her just getting popular, not being more left, but being more popular, is really what she needs to be more pro. I want to say pro people. I don't want to say left. She needs to be more pro people than Schumer, and hold his feet to the fire that way, while also being very palatable. But somebody said in the comments, I get it. You hate okay. I do not hate the far left. I hate it when they have terrible optics and they're LARPs. And also Karl Marx. I bring up to people all the time that him and Abraham Lincoln were pen pals. All right, that's one big historical fact that nobody knows. I say, hey, do you like Abraham Lincoln? Pretty cool. I love this with the freaking Republicans. Like, yeah, the best Republican president. I'll be like, yeah, look at this. Him and Karl Marx were pen pals. Lincoln actually has a speech talking about workers' relation to capital. Like, come on, bro.
Henry George outsold him.
By the way,
Progress and Poverty outsold the Communist Manifesto like tenfold. But anyway, that's a completely different conversation.
In my criminology course or whatever, we were talking about critical criminology, which is like, critical race theory, but criminology. It's about like conflict theory with like Marx and everything. And people are like, this is socialism. And then we went over a bunch of points about like how rich companies avoid legal systems. And people are like, this is Marxism. I'm not listening. I'm like, yes, it is. Like, that's what he talked about. It's power dynamics in society.
Yeah.
You don't have to you don't have to agree with everything he says, but to say that some of the concepts he originated do not hold true is so obscenely ignorant. And like, holy crap, get off Facebook, you nerd. Like, come on, bro. Like, of course rich people have more power in the legal system. Like, it's so obvious. But I still have people telling me like, oh, we can't tax billionaires. Billionaires deserve what they have because billionaires take on all the risk in our economy. I'm like, bro, 2008 affected no billionaires. They all stayed billionaires. You know who got hurt? Regular people. Regular people take all the risk for the economy, not the capital owners. You dumbass. Like, oh my god.
I don't want to get a tax fight, but we're gonna disagree on taxes. We're gonna disagree on taxes intensely.
No, but just the concept of it, of people saying that billionaires hold all the risk in this system when it comes to like materially thinking. They hold zero material risk, even if they were taxed 99%, they hold no material risk. They have power risk. At a certain point, capital becomes power. It moves from material wealth to actual fundamental political wealth. And like these concepts at the base level, I feel like people should understand just based on what billionaires are. But like they're so beaten down by the system. Like these working class people are just taught that they are lesser, and they just take it. They just freaking take it. They take it relentlessly. Like, oh, I do deserve to be poor. And like with all these things, like Oh
Mhm.
my God. I just want people to have a huge class about media literacy and self confidence and philosophy so they can think their way through problems and believe they can solve them. Because we have a big issue in this freaking country with a bunch of people just giving up and being weak mentally.
Mhm.
I don't care if you could beat me up. I don't care if you're stronger or whatever. I could probably outrun you. But anyway, if you're not mentally tough, you're not tough. Like that's the number one rule about like actual like discipline. And oh my God, bro, I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. When I messaged Tom, is he getting on now? Holy crap.
Wait, is Tom joining us? Oh my god, I'm so excited.
He
I
said he's
also
gonna
am
stream
now a
soon.
part officially of your Discord, which is very exciting. I originally failed to join, but now I can join. So if we need to join with him, we could do that.
I don't
Oh,
even
but
know why are there
he
that many
left.
people?
He went away.
Why are there
Why are
so
there
many people in my Discord? Like, come on.
in your Discord?
No,
Yeah,
it's
how
just
dare people be interested in the content that you provide? How dare
no, it's
they
just weird.
support you and support the work that you do? That's disgusting.
75 people online. How many
This
people
is
in total?
nonsense.
There's like
This is
400
nonsense.
people on there. It's just weird. I don't even realize it half the time. I'm like, no, but it's funny because I don't want to. I'll use my small streamer privilege, but decent
I'm ready.
enough. Like a lot of people who are like Twitch and politics streaming, once they
Yeah.
get to my level, I feel like they post on Twitter like, "Oh my God, the life of a public figure is so hard," and I'm just like,
Mm.
"Yeah, I do this channel sometimes when I have time on the side." Like I
The
try
life
to
of a
do what I
public
can. I don't
figure.
go on panels. I know Hans. That's all I really know.
Yeah.
I don't know any of you, but everybody else is like, "Oh my goodness, 1,000 subscribers! It's time for me to really get into the big leagues." And I'm like, yes, yes, the big
The big
leagues.
leagues. Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't know if that's like a
Uh,
microaggression, right? It doesn't-
it's a microaggression. Yeah, I think that
Yeah, that's a
we're actually
microaggression.
being creatorist, and that's disgusting. Why stop at 50? I'm confused. Oh, 50% estate tax.
Does
Oh,
anybody
yeah,
in
estate taxes are interesting. I might believe in estate taxes. I'm not sure about that.
what's your
But as taxes on labor, I don't believe in that at all. Fuck that shit. And also taxes on property, fuck that shit. Property, labor, land tax, I'm totally in favor of. But a property tax, that's disgusting
ooh,
and
you know
morally.
that one fee from corporations on unvaccinated individuals? In the realm of private insurance, it does make sense. Did you see that?
Private. So yeah, I was talking to someone. I can't actually name the company, but it's a company that you've heard of. And they were saying that they were considered. This is like a pretty high level executive, a father of one of my friends, and he was telling me that they're considering. Potentially making a rule that if you don't get the vaccination, you're going to be the one who's responsible for your copay instead of them being the company taking on your copay, which I think is a really interesting way of thinking about this. Like, listen, you're making shit more expensive for the rest of us. If you want to do this, like, live by your principles, you know? Like, if you want to take on the extra cost, I don't care. But, like, you have to deal with the consequences, and the consequences are financial. They're not just in terms of like societal. There's also financial costs to you personally for doing that because you cost more to insure.
Yeah, there's a cost for smoking too, like $50.
Yeah,
You got to respond
yeah.
to the person in chat. Then they're attacking your Georgism. But
They're
when it
attacking my
comes to,
Georgism.
but co-
Oh, I will
co-
just.
charge, but you can make the same argument against like universal health care, because fat people. Oh, can I say that? Is that legal in online? Larger
Um,
people who are
well, I think it should be legal. Do you think it
people
should
who
be legal?
consume more
Do you think that?
calories.
Do you
I
think
don't
that
know what the
saying
proper
mean
term.
things about the fats should be legal? Jola,
Thick,
We're going back to the
thick.
first
You could
conversation.
say
Should it be legal?
thick.
Should it
Nothing.
be
No
legal
speech
to
should
call
be
people
legal.
fat?
If you're not adoring Joseph Biden, you should be illegal.
Should it
Um,
be legal for me to call people fat? I'm not saying I would do it because I'm a beautiful man and I'm perfect, and I would never do that because I'm skinny. But should it be legal?
yes, you can call people fat. You just can't. You just can't call for like a race war.
Okay.
Those are my standards. But but that's what universal healthcare that's where the costs come from. It's old people, fat people, smokers, and like people who eat a lot of like junk food. But I would say to that, like, regulate soda, regulate McDonald's, the addictive chemicals in there. I would
Yeah.
say fast food companies need a little bit more oversight on it, what they're really feeding people. I think it's kind of I mean, I eat it though, but you know, we should probably look
Yeah.
into that a little bit. You could respond to the Georges person if you want.
Wait, what did they say?
They said they should put
They
you
just
on
said, "Oh
fire.
God, the guest is a Georgist." Correct. That is accurate. Tax on labor, you mean an income tax? Yes, that's a tax. An income tax is a tax on labor, Ranch Panda. Obviously, that's what it literally is. And also a property tax, a tax on your house, the infrastructure that you build. That is a tax on your not your income, but rather your net worth, right? Because the vast majority of middle income and low income people, particularly older people, the value that they own is almost exclusively held up in housing, not in land value, which is the value of natural resources that no one worked to create, but rather in the value of the infrastructure they've built on it, that they've paid to have built on it. Land value tax is good. That is based. I appreciate Comrade Zalatsatskabapaku. I'm just kidding. Nothing wrong with the land tax. I support Abu7 for retracting the garbage take that he said previously. He said, I'm looking at this anime, and this anime is of a man. I was right. I think it's of a man. If it's not of a man, that might be concerning and against TOS, which it should not be, but it might be because there is a nudity in that thing. And now I've zoomed in to see the nudity of your anime thing, and now I can't, so I have to reload the page. Oh no, I messed up. Can I succeed? I succeeded. It is no longer zoomed in. Nicotine in salads? What are you people talking about? You confuse me.
Do you
My
think
policy
cigarette companies should be able to say cigarettes are good?
What do you mean? Do I think they should be allowed to say cigarettes are good? Do I think that there should be labels that say that they're also bad? Yes, I think there should be labels that say.
I think that we should do survival of the fittest. Whoever. Oh no, are you vaccinated?
Yes, I'm vaccinated. Yes, because I am not a stupid boy. I have a brain, and I would like to not die, and therefore I am vaccinated. Because hear me out, death is bad, and I don't want to die.
What do you think about the 2 people globally that died from the vaccine?
I don't think about them.
It's funny because
I think about the 500,000 people who are dead in the United States alone.
Yeah, it's like the death rate for COVID becomes the #1 cause of death in America, and they're like, this is no big deal. But then one person in New Zealand, we think may have died from the vaccine, as the vaccine being the actual reason, and they're like, oh my god, pump the brakes. We have to slow down. The vaccines are dangerous. I'm like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah, it's like
come on.
No, Here's the thing. Okay, are you ready for my hot take? Here's my hot take.
The person that died, by the way, had 10 chronic illnesses, by the way. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay, here's my hot take. Okay. I am prepared. Now, admittedly, it is currently 1:33 a.m., so it might be a mistake to be starting this conversation now, but I'm going to start it regardless. Here.
Is this a tomfoolery conversation?
A little bit. Okay, here's the stance. Are you ready for the stance? Here's the stance. These people keep on talking about how it's my freedom to be able to walk around without a mask on, right? Okay. Now, they're saying it in public places. If they're saying it in private places in the context of an establishment, that's stupid, right? No shoes, no shirt, no service. You can manage to kick someone out of your private establishment because of what they are wearing or what they are not wearing. That is perfectly legitimate. However, if it is a public place, here's my argument. I do not believe. Now, I think it's perfectly reasonable in a public place that is indoors to say that you must wear a mask. But to tell people that they have to wear pants, and particularly to tell them they have to wear a shirt, nonsense. I don't believe in that. I think that is totalitarian bullshit, and I don't support it.
Well, I can't argue with that logic. It's too good. You got some Ben Shapiro type stuff on there. It's pretty intense.
It's my freedom. I mean, genuinely, who does it hurt if I, with my beautiful nubile body, decide to take off my shirt? Who is harmed by this decision? No one. Oh, I don't like to look at it. I don't care. Okay? Not everything's about you.
No,
fuck you. I'm not hurting you. No one's being hurt by this. I should be allowed to be in the nude. I don't know about literally in the nude, but close to it. I should have to be allowed to just walk around in my underwear, and I don't think anyone should be able to stop me.
I don't know what to say. I'll be honest. Where's
Why
Tom
is that
at?
wrong? So long as I'm wearing a
You
mask,
have to
right? There,
debate
there are
Tom.
there's like public policy reasons that I should have to wear a mask, and from a public health perspective, particularly if we're gonna have public health care, probably I should have to be wearing shoes because otherwise I might step on glass, and then the society might have to pay for it, right? And society should not have to pay for that. Therefore, I should potentially have to be wearing shoes in the same for the same reason that I have to wear a seatbelt, right? But I don't believe that society should be able to tell me or anyone else that they have to wear a shirt or pants. This is nonsense.
It's really damaging for me.
What's
My
damaging to you?
contacts have been hurting lately, like my eye contacts.
Mm.
But I'm really upset about that because my internship is starting soon, which is gonna kill me. It's gonna be so
Ooh.
time consuming with running and everything and like classes and this whatever the hell this YouTube thing is. Um,
Ooh.
I can't wear contacts though, which like they're hurting my eyes, so I have to wear glasses. But the
Yeah.
issue is that takes away a lot of
Your power.
my power. Yeah, like, the view, So like that hurts my opportunity to become Hassan Piker. So it's really gonna hurt me. The glasses don't look as good as the no glasses.
Yeah.
So especially with a mask on, like with a mask and glasses on, like
It's so foggy.
it's
I
really
hate it.
yeah, it just
I hate it
covers up
so
for
much.
vision.
Hmm.
I'm getting new masks in the mail. I got legit like black N95s
Oh,
because
that's intense.
I have to work in like this. I just don't want to get COVID. I was sick last week and it wasn't COVID, and I felt
Yeah.
so bad. I'm like, I don't want to get the actual thing.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
oh
that's
my
not.
God.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
Hey, it's a
Yeah.
paid internship. Shout out to the paid internship. I would
That's,
never take an unpaid one. Those are for rich
just
people,
get
I
some help,
guess.
please. Ubu 7. Not everyone is a fucking multi-billionaire who just go around getting some goddamn.
Oakley's.
Okay, go fuck yourself.
I
How
only get
dare
these
you?
because of insurance.
Am I allowed to
Because
bully your chat? Tom told me I'm not allowed to bully his chat, tomfoolery. And so I no longer bully
yeah,
his
this
chat.
is
I
the
can
night
stop
shift crew
bullying
right
his
here.
chat.
These are the OGs. These are the real
Oh, so
people
these are
that.
the ones who deserve to be bullied, is what you're
No,
telling
these
me.
are they're yeah. Other people. I don't even know. I don't know what the core content of my channel is. Like when I turn on a stream, usually stuff I like to cover, people just say it's boring, so I shut the stream off and record it off stream. Like if I talk
You
about
are
like actual
totally
news,
drama.
like I
Yeah.
wanted to review Joe Biden's speech, and somebody said this speech is boring. I'm like, okay, I'll do it off stream. Like, okay, idiots. You want me to do some Kyle Kalinske reactions? Kyle Kalinske dumb,
Yeah.
Bosch dumb, Destiny dumb. Like that's how you grow a channel, though.
That is
That's
how
why
you.
my channel grew more than a couple people
I
I
mean, not that
know.
I know anything about growing a channel. My channel has like 50 subscribers or something
I
like that. But
forget
yeah.
how I did it. Oh yeah, actually how because of crazy Facebook Bernier Busters. They used to share
Yeah.
my videos around a lot.
Oh, that's interesting.
Shout out to them, baby. Thank you guys. They all left
So
me
what you're
though.
telling me is that you're a populist. What you're telling me is that the way that you grew as a channel was by using their anger to grow your brand. That's what you're telling me?
I think honestly, I've gotten progressively more liberal over the past
Mm.
uh year as a result of COVID and everybody going completely bonkers and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I've started to favor, or not favor, but I've started to value stability more. I used
Mhm.
to be like very, very. I wouldn't say I was pretty illiberal with how I looked at it, but now I studied some history and learned how a couple things actually work instead of just like watching Kyle Kalinske. So now I've gotten a lot not centrist because I'm um definitely not centrist because they get me really mad, and I'm still gonna die on hills. Like for example, I'm never not gonna argue for things like trans rights, and I'm never not gonna. If somebody brings up Karl Marx, I'm gonna keep on bringing up how he's best friends with with Abraham Lincoln. Centrists don't do that. Okay, centrists do not want to go to the bat for Karl Marx. But I'm looking realistically. I don't know. I guess I'm just a liberal.
Why do you defend Carly? I think I'm gonna call him Carly now. I've decided. Is
Because
that misgendering him? I don't think it is.
I hate when people are wrong about things. So like if they're
Yeah.
if they think Karl Marx was some type of like Stalin character, I just hate it. So I'm like, he was best friends with Abraham, not best friends, the pen pals with Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln wrote, what was that speech called? It was like workers versus capital or something like that Abraham Lincoln wrote, and nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
We are the party of Lincoln, the Republicans say. If we can sell Karl Marx to America through Abraham Lincoln, like, oh my goodness, like, oh my,
Mhm.
yeah, that will
Yeah, I
never
don't know
happen.
why we would want to sell communism. Communism is not a good idea. But yes,
Being an
that is
online,
a way.
watching Vosh and stuff made me more centrist too, because Vosh is a centrist. I don't care what people say.
I hate Vosh. He's genuinely anti-Semitic. He's genuinely such a piece of shit. I hate
like
him so
Vosh.
much.
I just think he's a
Like,
centrist.
he's just
He's a social
okay.
democrat at most. He's not a socialist. He talks about
He's
that.
an
I'm sorry.
anti-Semite.
He's
He
a
hates Jews.
he's
And I
destiny.
don't know why
He's
no one realizes the fact that he hates the Jews. He's genuinely such a piece of shit. And it's
Hey,
so
I'm
frustrating
not
that no one
sponsoring
sees
these
it.
comments. I'm not ready for
I'm
this debate.
sponsoring this
I know
conference.
you are. I'm not though. Go to Quibbles, Bosch.
I am absolutely.
Can you please
Yes.
debate him? Can you
I would
please?
love to debate
Can
him.
you email
I
him and
would love
say
to debate him.
that would actually be pretty fun to watch?
That would be
I
super
don't know
fun
if he
to
would take
involve.
that though. He only
I
debates
don't know if he
like
would.
he does like Ben Shapiro debates now, where he debates like random callers on like.
Tristan, it is not objectively correct. No, I am not trolling. It is 100% true. He is literally called for the annihilation of all of Israel, and he has explicitly said that Jews do not believe in our ancestral homeland of Judea or Samaria. So, like, the idea that that's not anti-Semitism, it is. It is 100% anti-Semitism to say that Jews do not belong in our ancestral homeland, which is literally the name of the Jews. The reason we're called Jews is because of Judea. The idea that we do not belong in Judea is anti-Semitic. Okay, it's very simple. If you think that Muslims do not belong in all of Israel, Palestine, that makes you, hear me out, Islamophobic. Okay? If you think that Jews do not belong in the totality of Israel, Palestine, that makes you, hear me out,
Okay, wait.
anti-Semitic.
So
It's very simple.
you think he's anti-Semitic, but do you think he's openly like prejudiced against Jewish people, or do you think he's just like really lazily anti-Semitic?
I think
That's what
that
I
he,
would get from it.
I think that he is an example of someone who has, in the context of a conversation around the Israel-Palestine dispute, specifically targeted his critique against David Pacman for not encouraging people to donate to the PCRF, instead of attacking other people like Destiny, who are not Jewish, who have said the exact same, who have done the exact same thing. And I think it is very interesting, to say the very least, that the attack is specifically against David Pacman.
Well, he got the clip right before he said that, but he did choose Zionist, which he did not call anybody else. But David Pacman talks about being Jewish all the time. He's only ethnically Jewish, right? He's not like religious, or he's an atheist, right? I think he is. Yeah, he's atheist, I'm pretty sure. David Pacman is.
I think he's an atheist. Yeah. I mean, all
You
of
know
those
who I've
people,
been
all
watching?
of debaters
I've
are
been
atheists.
watching
It's pretty-
I've been watching Bad Empanada.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I like his new camera.
I
His
don't know
old
why I'm
camera
watching
kind of
it.
sucked, but I
I don't
really enjoy his
I
camera.
disagree with a lot of it, but I just I don't know why it's been interesting to me to hear his perspective on like I'm not saying I disagree with like a lot of it, but I just like hearing, because I disagree with a lot of what Vosh and Destiny say, so it's fun hearing like another perspective that fires back against what they say, because I really do think like Vosh is a liberal. So like I want to hear somebody
Wait,
who's like
I have to
edgy
shit on your chat again.
with these
Ubu
topics.
is saying nonsense. I'm sorry. I have to shit on Ubu7. Ubu7, that's bullshit. Oh boy, this guy misunderstanding the left, the nature of the most of left's criticism is hyperbole, and I cannot read right now because it is almost 2 a.m, but I don't care about Israel. Fuck you. That's insane. Hyperbole in that context, when you are calling for the death of millions of people, is not like acceptable hyperbole. If you heard someone like, Richard Spencer or what's his face, the baby version of Richard Spencer, the one that goes rah rah at the stuff, I forget his name, the one that like Destiny's debated a bunch of times. What's the dude's name? He's like a child.
Fuentes?
That's the one. Yes, Nick Fuentes. If Nick Fuentes is making jokes about like how many cookies can you burn in the cookie jar, or whatever the fuck it was, and making Holocaust jokes about how like there had to have been more gas chambers, that is not funny. That is explicitly a way of hiding his power level, hiding the fact that he quite clearly has views that are dramatically more intensely oppositional to the narrative, or whatever the fuck you want to say, of the Holocaust, than he's willing to state publicly. When Vosh explicitly states that he wants to kill all of the Jews in Israel, right? All of them, okay? That is not funny. You can call it hyperbolic. It might not literally be the extent of what he actually believes. He might just want to, like kick us out of our ancestral homeland, which does, of course, mean that we're going to die because we're not able to go back to Egypt. We're not able to go back to Germany. We're not able to go back to literally anywhere in the totality. Like, if you go down the list, which I don't have in front of me currently because it's 2 a.m, but if you go down the list of Middle Eastern countries, Jews are not welcome in almost any of them. The number of Jews in almost all of those countries is literally less than like 10% of what it was just 100 years ago. If you go down the list of European countries, the very similar circumstances can be stated. The amount of ethnic cleansing that has happened against the Jews across the world in the last 100 years is insane. So the idea, yeah, go for it.
Do you think that like Native Americans have a right to maintain wherever they're like uh whatever land they feel that is necessary to their ancestry?
I think that it is intensely I don't know what the word is, but anti-Native American to suggest that Native Americans do not belong in America.
Yeah, I
Now
just
that's
don't know
very
how I feel
different.
about all of that because I feel like it
To clarify,
does.
when I say that, that's a different statement than to say that because Native Americans deserve the right to live in America, that therefore all of America ought to be controlled exclusively and ought to be provided only to Native Americans. I am not saying that Muslims should be kicked out. I am saying that Jews should be permitted across the West Bank. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, because it just a lot of these positions when you bring up like Zionism or whatever, I feel like a lot of what the rhetoric is, and that's why it's hard for when you talk about this stuff, it's probably hard to not give credence to more radical people who are more like nationalistic and who are very a part of the zealotry behind it, where they're like basically like we deserve this homeland, nobody else can come in. If they do try to come in, they are poisoning our national heritage or whatever. Because I feel like when you uh what was there was the interview series of Jewish people in Israel, and their attitudes towards Palestinians were basically that they are like a tribal group of like degenerates. It seemed from the I have to look it up again, but it seems like the polling out of the West Bank isn't very favorable as like when it comes to the opinions to how many Palestinians or to what human rights Palestinians deserve. And I just feel like that nationalistic attitude is kind of toxic, and that develops for any culture though, that feels right to a land of any sort.
Do you think that Jews belong in Israel Palestine?
Yeah, I think it should be open though. But I think that what I'm saying is the current attitudes are very radical, that are
I don't know why it's
upheld
radical
there.
to say that we belong in our ancestral homeland.
No, I'm not saying that they belong there is radical. I'm saying that there should be a solution, but the radical ideas that are coming from there are very nationalistic with how it's presented, because a lot of Jewish people do feel they are the rightful owners to it, with nobody
Yeah,
else being allowed in. And I reject that line of thinking. I agree that there should
that
be a solution where,
that there exist Islamophobic Jews and that there exist anti-Semitic
yeah,
Muslims is not an argument that either group doesn't
but
deserve to live in.
how do we fix that problem if there is a problem in the West Bank? Because I feel like it's just so hard because
I
the
don't think
political
that.
gridlock will
Yeah,
be there forever.
I
I feel like
this,
it's not fixable.
I think the long-term solution that I'm moving that I think that we are seeing moved towards in the region is that the solution is going to eventually be either a two-state or some version of a three-state solution. So if it was a two-state, it would be broadly the majority of the West Bank, although not all of it, and as well as broadly the majority of Gaza Strip, although potentially not all of it, because a part of it could potentially go to Egypt, going to this state that we would refer to as Palestine, that would be controlled broadly. Three-state is to suggest there's two versions of the three-state solution. One version of the three-state solution would be that parts of the Gaza Strip go back to Egypt. Another version of it would be that all of it goes back to Egypt, and that all of the West Bank goes back to Jordan, or portions of the West Bank go back to Jordan. So that's a three-state as a broad principle. The historic ties there make sense. Jordan, originally when we talk talk about Palestine proper. Palestine, under the British mandate, included all of Jordan. That's why it's called the West Bank. It's called the West Bank because it's on the west side of the Jordan River. The rest of the Jordan is called the East Bank version, a component of Jordan. Jordan proper, the country of Jordan, originally included both the West Bank and also the East Bank. And so that change has happened over time. Of course, that's Comrade Zelensky thinks that's insane to suggest. I'm not suggesting the three-state solution of giving back all of the West Bank to Jordan and all of Gaza back to Egypt. That is, of course, insane. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that is one of the possible opportunities that could be done, but I don't like it. Is Jolah running away? Where is Jolah going?
I was stretching.
Oh, you were stretching. I should stretch. Ooh, what a stretch.
Um,
Ooh, what a stretch. I successfully stretched. Yes.
I don't know. Maybe we should just like
I just don't think that we should be
we should
telling
build a
people
new
that they're
one.
up.
We should do
We should
like
build a new one.
we should have a DLC and just buy the DLC and
I don't
download
think we
it
can do that.
in Minecraft and copy and paste it and just make 2 of them so that everybody's happy.
I don't think that that's going to work.
When is
But-
Tom getting on? I was waiting for Tom. If he's not getting on, then I'm going to bed because I thought he was going to be
Is
streaming.
nonsense. I think
I'm
we should
mad.
bully him. Can we bully him publicly? How do we bully him publicly? Is it rude to bully him publicly? I don't think so.
I gotta
I
post
think
my Tom
bullying.
McDonald reaction. I need people to go on my channel. I gotta get the
Mm.
clickbait, baby. What should I title
Yeah.
it? Liberal dominates. I already did that. Did I say destroys or
do-
dominates?
You should do. Let me think. It should
I
be something with the
did.
word destruction.
I did
The
destroys.
destruction. What's the name of the this video that he made? His new
Dummies.
song.
Dummies.
I don't think that people should be called anti-Semitic for condemning the displacement of an entire population. Of course not. I'm saying that you're anti-Semitic when you are in favor of the displacement of an entire population. I am saying that you are anti-Semitic when you are forcing Jews out of your country, which happened across the totality of the Middle East, which happened across the totality of Europe as well. And therefore, I am saying that because of that, in that context, and given the historic ties that Jews have to the land, that Jews belong in the totality of Israel-Palestine. This is not a complicated principle, okay? Judea and Sumeria, hear me out, okay? If you look at Judea and Sumeria, okay, this is going to shock you. Are you ready? The archaeological digs in Judea and Sumeria show this is absolutely shocking. Are you ready for this? Whoa, Jews used to live there once. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't it like such a shocking revelation that Jews used to live in the place that is literally the ancestral homeland of the Jews? That's so fascinating. It's almost like we were murdered and kicked out of that place, that we were ethnically cleansed from Israel, Palestine, that's why we were forced to leave. And then we were ethnically cleansed from the place that we were forced out of it to go to, like places like Germany, like places like Egypt, like places like Syria, like places like Ethiopia, across Northern Africa, across the Middle East, No, this is insane. You're saying insanity, and I cannot abide by it. Also, it's 2 a.m. I can't do it.
Okay, if
Yeah,
Tom's not coming on, I'm
this is nonsense. The lack of Tom, I hate it. Nah, bro, you just genuinely said criticizing Jewish people's right to the land was anti-Semitic. Yes. Jewish right to the land does not negate the right of Muslim people to the land. What are you talking about? When I say that Native Americans deserve to live in America, do you think that's me saying that like black people or white people don't also deserve to live in America? I'm saying that Native Americans belong in America. Jews are native to the land of Judea. This is not rocket science. Therefore, Jews should be permitted to live in Judea. Okay? Similarly, of course, after living there for 1,000 years, after the Jews, yes, but for 1,000 years, it's a long freaking time. Of course, Muslims should also be allowed to live in Judea and Samaria. This is not rocket science. What's wrong with you? That is my experience. My experience is that. Anyway,
Okay.
why is Tom not here? I feel like we need a
I
Tom.
might be shutting the stream down. Everybody watching, thank you for hanging out.
I had a wonderful experience.
Thanks for the conversation. I'll
Wait,
probably
Jewish is a race? No, it's ethnicity. Oh my God. Are you going to be one of those people who's like, yeah, I can't deal with them. Okay. For both of our sanity, we should be done. I adore you.
I'll probably put up the internet thing tomorrow at some point. I'm gonna
This is fair.
private the live stream probably because I don't want people to watch it off stream. Not even 11 p.m. here. Shut up, California. Probably.
Not everything is
Everybody's on the West
about
Coast.
California. Okay. Some of us live in the correct coast, you know? Yeah.
Tom. I shouldn't be yelling.
Got him.
I
Got
should not
him.
be yelling for Tom.
Our zoning policy is better, but it's not like our zoning policy is good. But it is better.
Yeah, go on the Vosh's stream. He never platformed me, so I hate him. That's why I call him a liberal.
Yeah.
He is
If
a
AOC
liberal, though.
on my show, that means that AOC is actually a sellout.
I just
That's
hate the
how-
idea that liberal is a political
Mm.
position because oh my god, it makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense. Are you a conservative or a liberal? Like, oh my, I just hate it. I just hate it, dude. Because Vosh is a liberal. Like, Vosh is a liberal.
I can't deal with these people. Fate Wind, you're saying so. I'm sorry. I keep on interrupting, but Fate Wind keeps on
Hey,
saying
you can
nonsense.
debate Fate and they're always in Discord, always,
Oh, I
all of the
hate
time.
Fate, send me a
Doing
friend
the Jimmy
request
Dore to
on
Vosh. No,
on
Vosh is a
Discord.
liberal. No, go in general chat. General chat in my Discord, always there.
Okay, I need to.
All right, good night, everybody.
Wait, I don't have permission to send messages. Oh, to the welcome. Never mind. I'm fine. No, I still don't. Oh, whatever. All right.